Hey now, it is a feel-good Friday, it is a red Friday, and it is 580 Sports Talk coming your way from 2 until roughly 5:45-ish tonight. We've got some high school hoops coming up. Our Lewis Toyota high school basketball game of the week doubleheader. It's going to be a great one. I think boys and girls should be a lot of fun tonight. Washburn Rural visiting Hayden, one of the best rivalries in the city. That's coming up tonight. Dan Lucero will be on the call from the Butel Center at Hayden High School. 5:45 approximate pregame start time tonight. I would assume it'll be right about 5:45. Hayden is usually right on top of the clock.
Yeah, they they only have the one gym, so sometimes there can be some backup, but they do a pretty good job keeping things moving right along. So if you are closest to guessing the actual start time of tonight's Lewis Toyota High School Basketball Game of the Week broadcast, you, the listener, will win my respect.
Hey, that's valuable. It's all a man has.
Maybe we can get that sponsored. That's a sponsorship opportunity. Hit my line. But for now, that's all I can offer.
Brendan Dworzinski and Dan Lucero here with you, though. We'll be with you until the start of pregame for our games of the week coming up tonight. Again, Hayden hosting Washburn Rural. That should be a lot of fun. And we've got a lot of fun to get to coming up on 580 Sports Talk today. Plenty of Chiefs to get to. We're not going to give you a full keys to the game because everybody and their mother has admitted that this game means absolutely nothing.
Key number one, don't get hurt. Key number two, not for real. Don't get hurt.
Yeah, that's essentially what it comes down to. But we'll tell you some of the interesting things to watch. We'll get to some final Chiefs thoughts coming up here to lead off this hour. We'll also go around the NFL this hour. Plenty of major implications in a handful of games. Also, you've got a number of games that are just going to be terrible. We might end up with a snow game between the Jets and Patriots. It'll be the most forgotten snow game of all time. I'll be flipping on ESPN Plus on Sunday night to watch primetime with Boomer and Booger. And I'm going to say, wait, that game happened? Really? It did? I don't remember this at all.
They're just leaving that monitor off on the Red Zone channel. They're not even going to bother. You will not see one snap of that game on the Red Zone channel.
Although, you know what's amazing? I'm looking at this right now. That is the only game this weekend that features both teams completely out of the playoff picture. Every single other game in the NFL slate features at least one team that is alive for a playoff berth or for a seed change. That is the only game that has no implications at all.
That is the Ben Folds 5 Battle of Who Could Care Less game of the week.
I guess arguably the Browns game and the Chiefs game are in the next tier of meaningless because the Bengals are out. They play the Browns, and the Browns are locked into the 5 seed. The Chargers are out. They're playing the Chiefs, who are locked into the 3 seed. But even that, at least you have playoff teams who are involved, and at least one of them is our local team, the team we cover. Everything else has meaning. Not Patriots Jets, though. That's going to be one of the worst games of the NFL season, easily. So we'll go around the NFL coming up later on this hour. Matt Derrick will join us, as he does every Friday, for our Chiefs Insider, bottom of the 3 o'clock hour. And we've got our final regular season week of picks. I am still 2.5 games behind Dan, so I'm going to need something of a miracle this week as we round out the regular season. I'm 40-48 for the year, unfortunately well into the red. Dan is 42-45-1. That one push might make the difference.
Well, I'll tell you this. What will help you this week is that it's nothing but NFL games on the docket. My college football record, I think I was something like 15 over 500 picking college games this year, which should go to show you just how miserable my NFL picks have been. So I've been so off picking the league this year. If you listen to my college picks, you won some money. If you listen to my NFL picks, apologies.
I, for the year, just, my own personal bank account accounting, I did really, really well on college football, and I've been okay on the NFL. So apparently the only picks I ever get wrong are the ones I give you on the show, which
I had a run
great.
I had a run like that for a while where I would pick 3 college games on the show and they would go 1-2. And then in real life, I was going 6-2 for the day. I was giving winners left and right. I was putting them on my Twitter. I was tweeting them out. So you could see I wasn't a total dunce. I just had very poor judgment as to which ones I felt the most confident about.
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
Which that oftentimes is how it works.
Yeah, it really is. So our game picks are coming up to lead off the 4 o'clock hour. We'll also do our Big 12 basketball season preview. The Big 12 slate begins tomorrow. KU versus TCU, K-State versus UCF. You'll be able to hear that K-State game right here on 580 WIBW. So we'll get to our full Big 12 basketball season preview. Who should the favorites, other than KU, be to win the league? Who do you think will be a surprisingly good team? Who will be a surprisingly bad team? That and much more coming up in the 3 o'clock hour today. We'll get to some KU and K-State previews specifically coming up in the 4 o'clock hour. Our 580 Sports Talk headlines. We've got What Is Wrong With You. We'll find our weekly winner on Second Thought, Change My Mind. All that coming up here on 580 Sports Talk today. Let us know your thoughts on anything we are talking about today. Hit us up on the text line, 785-272-9429, or you can jump into the YouTube stream. 580 Sports Talk on YouTube is where you can find us. Go subscribe while you're there. Up over 410 subscribers. Appreciate all you guys who have subscribed to the channel, subscribed to the live streams. Come check us out there if you'd like to see the video version of the show today. Our pal Christopher in the comments says, hi, folks. Back to regular listening now that the World Darts Championship is done and dusted. You've been following the World Championship darts?
I have not.
I'm going to tell you something.
They got you had Darts Danny Almonte out there doing it big, though. The kid they said was 16 years old, but there's no way he doesn't isn't already on his second mortgage.
Mm-hmm. He's a darts player?
Yes.
What? I did not know that.
Yeah, this 16-year-old kid, he made the final. Luke Littler.
Oh, I thought you meant Danny Almonte literally was a world champion.
No, I mean
player.
He's darts Danny Almonte.
Okay, yeah, no, he doesn't look 16.
Yeah, I say that because he's a young prodigy, and I do not believe that is his real age.
So my best friend and I, he's really into the darts. I will watch highlights. Like anytime I see a World Darts, WDC clip on Twitter, I watch every single one of them, and we'll just send clips and highlights back and forth. That's all of our Twitter DMs, and I was getting really behind this kid. He does not look 16 years old.
No,
at all.
Not even a little bit. Like, I feel about darts the same way I feel about Formula One. Like, I think there are people who do like it, but I think a lot of y'all are faking the funk. I think that a lot of you are faking the funk on how much you really are getting into these darts.
I like the highlights of it because the crowds are unbelievable. They go nuts. I think, how do you see anything? Like, the board is not big.
Now, people like on a random Saturday morning at 7 a.m. tweeting, "Oh, Charles Leclerc, what a race he ran. Maybe he'll get on the podium this time." Like, no, you don't really care.
No,
you're looking for engagement. You're bored. You don't care.
Yeah, I have a hard time believing in the F1 thing.
Yes, that's a false flag.
Although, I will say, our pal Michael Swain, and this is going to transition into something else I was going to get to later. So he did he went to the race down at the, what is it called? The Circle of the Americas? Is that what it is?
Avenue of the Americas?
No, that's in New York City.
Yeah, New York City.
that's in Manhattan. Yeah. What is the name of the track?
Was it Vegas or?
He was in Austin.
Oh,
the one he went to.
Yeah,
and he said, and he admitted to us when I asked him about it, he said, "Yeah, look, hey man, during COVID, I watched Drive to Survive on Netflix, and I got into it because of that." What I was going to bring up later, he got cooked by Bill Self during his press conference yesterday. So I was cutting up some audio from the Self's press conference, and Self opens up, says, "Hey, Happy New Year, everyone! This is the first time we've seen you guys since the new year." And then you can only see Self's face on camera. But he goes, "Anyone stay up till midnight?" And Michael always sits in the same spot of the media room. Always. I always have my spot when I'm there at games. I usually sit in the back. Michael's front row to the left, looking at the podium, at the dais, the lectern, whatever you want to call it. And Bill looks in his direction, and you can just tell that he shook his head no. And Bill goes, "No. How old are you?" And Michael goes, "I'm 26. And Bill's shaking his head like, 26? Oh, my God. And then someone says, "Well, did you?" And he said, "Well, I'm 61 now, but at 26, you're damn sure I was up till midnight." Gotta ask Michael.
him.
Yeah, I know. I got to text Michael about that and say, "Damn, man, Coach was roasting you this week." Again, we'd love to hear what you have to say about anything we were talking about today. If you've got any darts tips for us, let us know. Christopher tells us on YouTube he's a longtime darts fan.
I'm not saying there are no true darts heads out there. Like I believe it. I think there's an audience for everything. I just think some people are like getting some people are faking the funk. That's all I'm saying.
What are you called if you're a darts fan? Like if you're really into racing and motorsports, you're a gearhead.
Gearhead, yeah.
Or in England they call you a petrol head.
Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, at least some people are called that.
I like that.
Yeah, what are you if you're you real dart head. I don't know.
That sounds more like an insult.
Yeah,
Honestly.
it really does. It's like something a British person would call an idiot. Like, oh, you real dart head.
A dart aficionado.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, I kind of like that.
We'll roll with that.
Yeah. Shout out to the dart aficionados out there. The real and the fake. Everybody, everybody enjoy everything.
Per usual, it's Feel Good Friday here on 580 Sports Talk. All right, let's get to the Kansas City Chiefs. They are in action coming up on Sunday, 3:25. You'll be able to hear that game right here on 580 WIBW and FM 104.9. Your home for Chiefs football across Northeast Kansas. This is the smallest broadcast map, like region of broadcast I've ever seen for a Chiefs game in this era. It's essentially just the cities that have the Chiefs radio network and then LA. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
Even Omaha isn't getting it. They're getting Packers Bears instead this week.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huh.
So that's how our pal Larry Latimer, that's how he became a Bears fan as a kid on the Iowa side of Omaha.
Sure.
He, just a little south of Council Bluffs. They got Bears games all the time. He's
sure.
a Bears fan. So
sure.
Have to razz him a little bit this week.
This will be the smallest audience for a Patrick Mahomes game.
That's crazy.
Ever, maybe?
Oh, it's got to be.
At least since his rookie year.
Yeah. You've got the games that are going to be seen by the most of America this week. Jacksonville, Tennessee, Chicago, Green Bay, Minnesota, Detroit. I don't know why Minnesota, Detroit has such a gigantic audience, because Minnesota's playoff potential is completely dependent on the Green Bay, Chicago game.
The people love Dan Campbell.
Apparently they do. And then Dallas, Washington gets the majority of the country in the Fox late window.
Boy.
This is one of the best, or the best weekend for watching games, though, because everyone gets two on both networks.
That's true.
No blackouts this week.
Why does Birmingham, Alabama get Philadelphia, New York? Is that a Jalen Hurts thing?
Yeah, I bet it's Jalen Hurts.
Interesting.
You do notice that once in a while. Like when Baker Mayfield
Tampa Bay, Carolina is going to be on in OKC and Tulsa.
Yeah, there you go.
That and sometimes like Casper, like you'll see like a swath of Wyoming gets a Bills game.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I remember first noticing that when Baker was a rookie and took over in Cleveland and they started winning, and all Browns games for some reason were on in Oklahoma. And I thought, oh well, I guess it's because of Baker Mayfield.
Now this I don't get. Why aren't you giving all of North Dakota Rams 49ers, considering this will be Carson Wentz's first start of the season? Why is only Western North Dakota getting that game? The Fargo TV market gets stuck with Dallas, Washington. Disrespectful.
Yeah, that's odd.
Give the people of North Dakota what they want.
Yeah, you'd think that Fargo would be all over wanting to watch. Well, and usually by this time of week, too, they have those things updated. Wow. That's very weird. Very, very weird. As for this Chiefs game, and again, there aren't going to be a whole lot of people who are watching it.
Yeah, we've been putting off talking about it because there's not a lot to say.
Yeah, like
let's be completely honest.
You want to play predict the Blaine Gabbert line? Like, that's not really doing anything for us this week. Just like you said, don't get hurt. The handful of guys who actually are going to make an impact, because you have to play some of those guys, because you can only have 7 dudes inactive any given week.
17 to 25, 158 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception for Gabbert.
Yeah, I mean, what do you expect to see? I would love to see him go nuts and just throw the ball all over the yard.
Have the Matt Flynn game.
Yeah, 5 touchdowns, 380 yards.
The Chiefs have unlocked the secret to restoring their deep passing game, playing Blaine Gabbert.
Blaine Gabbert throwing jump balls to Justin Ross. Like, that's what it is. Because
spamming back shoulder fades.
Because if you're Andy Reid and you're calling the plays for this game, I would imagine at this point Blaine Gabbert knows and is pretty adept with most of the playbook. But do you really want to use a lot of that in this game? Because again, it's not about, you don't want to put things on film. Most of your stuff's on film at this point anyway, but you pretty much just want to get out of this game and make it as simple as possible. What you want to do in this game, and they're not going to do it. I know it. You don't have to tell me. But, like, you run the ball in this game. Get that clock moving. Get this game over in 2.5 hours and get on with prep for the playoffs. Because by that point, the Chiefs should probably know who they're playing, right? I believe
No, they won't know until Buffalo, Miami.
Oh, I guess that's true, because that's the night game.
Yeah, they won't know. It's either Miami or some other combination of opponents.
Yeah, I guess that's true. So, but again, the general point is you don't want to go too overboard in this game. You're probably not going to do a whole lot when you've got the backup receivers, which is really saying something.
I'll bet they run at least like one fun play that they've had like in the holster. Like they did the snow globe last year and should have gotten Tony a touchdown. Creed Humphrey got called for the tiki-tackest holding call you've ever seen to wipe that touchdown off the board. I bet the Chiefs have one holstered just to have a little fun. They get down close to the goal line. They'll run something silly.
All right, I'm going to call my shot on this one. They're going to run a play that's called MIZ, and it's going to be some sort of wacky Blaine Gabbert keeper. That's going to be we know Andy Reid loves Mizzou because of his time there as an assistant. Blaine Gabbert, Missouri guy. They're going to run something called MIZ.
They're going to throw a pass to Derrick Nottie.
That'd be pretty sick. That would also, to me, guarantee that he's done with the Chiefs. Like, all right, thank you for your 6 years and your multiple one-year deals. This is how we're going to send you off. Like, I don't know. I wish there was more drama with this game, but it means
give me one guy that you're like interested to see play games worth of scrimmage downs.
Honestly, I'm gonna go on defense. It's the guy I picked for my big chief, Mike Dana. I want to see Mike Dana go crazy because honestly, this is probably the last great chance that Mike Dana has to showcase why you should pay him a good amount of money in free agency next year. He's going to be starting out there. Honestly, give me anyone who's going to rotate in at edge rusher because I can't imagine we see a ton of Karlaftis in this game. I don't know what we'll see out of a Menahu, but I mean, this is probably a good game for Felix and Udike-Uzomah to play a little bit, right? Like if he's good to go,
I think he's going to play a lot.
I would hope so.
I would expect he gets like 70-75% of snaps. I think he's going to play a ton of scrimmage downs.
This feels like
we talked to Mitch Holtis yesterday while you were at Lee Arena, and he said they're going to be guys who feel like it's high school again because they're going to play so many snaps. He's like they might play. Mitch suspected they might play with like 36 or 38 guys and just have a bunch of guys who are active but are absolutely not going to see the field.
Yeah. No, I think that's certainly possible. I was going to say for Felix, it kind of feels like the red shirt rule in college football now where, oh man, you're K-State playing SEMO, so you can give everybody tons of snaps because, you know, you're not going to play when you go up against Texas, but you can play them against SEMO to get them some reps, and they're still going to get their red shirt. That's kind of what this feels like for Felix and Udike-Uzomah. Get him out there. Let's see what he's got. He's got a full season's worth of practice, of limited game reps. I want to see guys like that go out there. So for Felix, it is, let's just see what you got. And for a guy like Mike Dana, I want to see what he's able to do with his last showcase game before he says, hey, I'm hitting free agency and I want to get paid. So that's what I would be looking at is those guys defensively. Plus, as we have talked about countless times, you can never have enough pass rushers. You can never have enough good edge players. And I mean, if push comes to shove, let's say, you know, God forbid someone gets hurt and you need to play Felix a little bit in the playoffs. You need to play more Mike Dana. He'll play a lot already, but you need to play more of Mike Dana come the postseason. Or Malik Herring, you throw him in the mix. Maybe you need one of those guys in a pinch come wild card round, divisional round, whenever. Let's see what those guys have going into this, try to build a little positivity, a little momentum, and more than anything, a little confidence going into the postseason. So that's what I'm looking at. Do you have a guy or guys or a position group that you're focusing on here?
I think we're going to see a lot of Echo Boydo and Nick Jones at cornerback in this game, and I'm interested to see how they look. Like technique-wise, like do they make some plays on the ball? Like do they look like NFL caliber cornerbacks? Because one of the great strengths of the Chiefs the last few years has been their ability to find NFL caliber cornerbacks from every nook and cranny. Find them early in the draft, find them mid rounds, find them in the late rounds, find them as undrafted free agents, find them in trades for forgettable guys. Shout out to Charvarius Ward. They find NFL corners. And I wonder if Echo Boydo and Nick Jones can look the part. Boydo, undrafted free agent, obviously local kid. A lot of people be rooting him on to see him on the field, play some scrimmage downs. And Nick Jones, the 7th round pick from this last year's draft. So yeah, it generally interested. Like, I don't think they're going to be real tested because Easton Stick is throwing the ball to like gym teachers at wide receiver.
Jeez. Gym teacher.
But personal trainers, whatever you want. So it's not like he's going up there. These guys are going up against like prime Keenan Allen and Justin Herbert throwing the rock, but it'll be a good test. Just technique wise, are they in the right place? Are they able to play the ball? Do they tackle well in space? Do the things that we've come to expect cornerbacks for the Chiefs to do over the last few years.
All right, who's your big Chief?
Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I think he's going to play. He's going to get a ton of carries. Wouldn't be surprised if he goes over 100 yards.
Another guy with a showcase game. Hey, let's see what kind of juice you have left in there. Plus, he's probably going to play a decent amount come the postseason because he's been playing a decent amount lately. Give me a score prediction. Who wins?
Chiefs 16-13.
I'm going with Chiefs 19-12 over the Chargers. I mean, the Chargers are just they're just dead in the water. And that's not a criticism of Giff Smith or any of the guys who are coaching there right now, but Staley was close to a dead man walking. The vibes were just so bad for that team this year, especially after Herbert got hurt. I think that's very much a Cancun on 3 kind of team, and I think the Chiefs are going to try to put them out of their misery. Heard an interesting question today to that topic. This was on the Athletics football show. They were doing their Week 18 preview. What team do you think ruined their good vibes from last season the most this year?
In football?
Yeah.
That is a good question. Honestly, it might be the Jets. Like they had the we're a quarterback away vibe, and that lasted 4 snaps. And then the guy that they thought was going to be their face of their franchise and who they reoriented their entire offseason around ended up just like hanging out on an island somewhere and spouting conspiracy theories to Pat McAfee all season. Like that was all he did. So I would say them. Probably them. And the Giants, although they had a little fun with the Tommy DeVito thing. So like there was at least some like fun there. It wasn't totally grim all the way around.
Honestly, and the time the game that this came up for was the Jags game. And I kind of feel like they still might make the playoffs, which is a win for that franchise. But last year, they have that crazy comeback against the Chargers. And then remember all offseason, it's like, oh, shoot, the Jags they're good now. They're on the way up. They're on the ascent. They're a playoff team. They've got their quarterback. They've got a decent receiving core, and they're adding Calvin Ridley. They got to retool the defense, but that's a team on the rise. Right now, like, does it feel like the Jaguars are any closer to contention than they were last year?
No.
Does it feel like they're farther away?
Maybe. Like, I don't know if I have more questions about Trevor Lawrence, but I don't have the answers I was thinking I would have about Trevor Lawrence.
I think there are more teams now that you can say are legitimate contenders either at that same level or have surpassed. Like Baltimore last year, I would have put on the same level as Jacksonville. I was like, yeah, they're just kind of stale, but they've got Lamar, and I like Harbaugh. I mean, Baltimore is this year the best team in the NFL, and I think long-term they're set up for success. I think once Burrow's back, Cincinnati is still there. The Chiefs are obviously still there. I don't know. I feel a little bit worse about that Jacksonville team now than I did last year for certain. But the Chargers definitely the same thing, even with that horrible loss in the postseason last year. Like, you got Herbert, and all the analytics guys love Brandon Staley, and now it's no good for that franchise. Coming up on the other side of this break, we'll play a little Change My Mind, and we'll go around the NFL later this hour here on 580 Sports Talk. One quick point about what we were just talking about on the other side of the commercial. Mark brings up both Houston and Indianapolis on the YouTube comments about Jacksonville and their potential and the vibes around that franchise. And I think that's a good point, like Jacksonville's no longer the only show in town in the AFC South, because it looks like Houston has an elite quarterback of its own, because CJ Stroud is awesome. And the Colts have a chance to make the playoffs with like paper clips and chewed gum holding them together, and Gardner Minshew at quarterback for the majority of the year. They might make the playoffs without even having the 4th overall pick in the draft for the vast majority of the season. So I think that division as a whole is on the way up for sure, and especially when you got a guy like CJ Stroud playing in Houston. All right, change my mind time for this week. Change my mind. We're going to get to our Big 12 basketball preview coming up in just a little bit, but change my mind for the full NCAA basketball landscape. KU should be the favorites to win the national champion this year.
Are we sure they're the favorites to win the Big 12? The metrics say Kansas is outside the top 10 in the Ken Palm, and have Houston a resounding number 1. And I know Houston is new to the league and have not gone through the rigors of a Big 12 schedule the way that Kansas has become accustomed to doing so. But you know who is accustomed to the rigors of a difficult league schedule? Kelvin Sampson. He's been there and done that. And I think that when you have a coach like that, a program that's had the kind of March experience that Houston has had coming in, I think they're going to be a little less intimidated by the new league. And again, the metrics say it's Houston. They say they're the favorites. So as far as a favorite to win the whole thing, gosh, that's hard to say. I really think that like all of the power programs are pretty obviously flawed. Like Purdue's guard play still isn't real great. KU clearly has some problems with depth and they don't shoot it real well. Arizona, to me, is a team that has had some head-scratching losses. I'm not sure how good they are in defense. And again, their recent tournament track record hasn't been very good. So I'm comfortable if somebody wants to argue that it's Kansas. I get why you argue that it's Kansas. There's plenty of reasons to argue for that. But man, the numbers really, really like Houston.
Yeah.
and I think that right now, you when we don't have any league evidence to go on, I'm okay if you want to lean toward the numbers too.
I would say that I think the grind of the Big 12 schedule is going to hurt Houston, at least in this first year. I do think that is going to be a detriment to them. Now, they have played a lot of meaningful games, and I emphasize a lot because they've made deep runs in the NCAA tournament. Just in the last 4 years, 4 tournaments because, COVID year. Sweet 16, Final Four, Elite 8, Sweet 16. That's a lot of success for that program, and I understand that. But I do think it is different when you have to go through what is now an 18-game grind in the Big 12, night in, night out. I think that is going to be challenging for a team, especially one that, while the metrics do love them, they have also lost a lot of talent from the last couple of years. KU, I think, is in a better position with the guys they have, with the experience they have of the Big 12 schedule. And like I've said before, I think if you just want to give me, and I know this is not all that basketball is, but you want to give me your top 5, give me your 5 starters for every team in the country. I think KU's the best team in the country. I really do. I think 1 through 5. Now, after that, that's where you obviously have the big questions, and you do need some bench players to play meaningful minutes, but I think 1 through 5, KU's the best team in the country. I really do. Like, I don't trust Purdue. I don't trust Purdue more farther than I can throw them when you get to the NCAA tournament, because who's going to make a play other than Zach Edey? You touching or trusting Foster Lawyer to make a play for you?
You got Foster Lawyer and Braden Smith, and you'd think as sophomores they would be better, but like, I don't know, man. I still think in a big game I have some questions about them.
Yeah, so I don't really trust them. Arizona, I think, is good, but Arizona also has lost a couple of games against good teams they've played so far.
And they got a guy in Caleb Love that's liable to beat you with 35, and he's also liable to go like 2 for 12 from 3 and shoot his team out of a game.
Yeah. Here's the other thing, too, that I think is worth noting is that KU isn't blowing anyone out because they don't have that kind of depth. And that's a big reason why for these non-conference games, the metrics will favor teams that are blowing others out, whereas KU has not done that. not to, completely live the meme in real life, but Houston ain't played nobody, Paul. Like,
this is true.
They have not played anybody. They beat Texas A&M, which is at least a high major team. But, I don't know. Congrats on beating Towson by 16 in a neutral site game. Congrats on blowing out Rice. That doesn't do it for me. So I think Houston will be very good, and we'll get to them a little bit more later on, but I'm not certain that they can handle an entire 18-game Big 12 slate in year one.
Change my mind. There is no clear favorite in the NFC.
I do think it is San Francisco. I think San Francisco is the clear favorite because they are the one with the least obvious flaw. I do think they have some flaws. And I think if you wanted to say, well, Brock Purdy is their obvious flaw, my counter to that would be he's the weakest individual spot on that team outside of maybe interior offensive line play. But he's still made it work, save for 2 games this season. I mean, he's put up big numbers. He's been successful, even if talent-wise, he is below all the other guys in that offense. That defense is really good. It's beatable, but it is still very good. Whereas you look at Philadelphia, they cannot stop a nosebleed. They have a terrible defense, especially against the pass. Dallas, they struggle against good teams, and that is a usually fatal flaw when you get to the postseason, when you lose games to bad teams and then struggle against other good ones. I was really worried when they lost that game to Miami. They got in a shootout with a team that is majorly flawed, I think even more flawed than Dallas, and they ended up losing that game at home. That worried me a lot with that game. I don't trust them further than I can throw them. The rest of the NFC, I mean, the Lions, I think, are certainly beatable. Their aggression, I like it, but it also comes back to bite them a lot. And are you trusting Jared Goff in the playoffs? I wouldn't. I would trust Brock Purdy over, I don't think I would take, overwhelmingly Jared Goff over a Brock Purdy type if you're trying to tell me, what quarterbacks do you trust the most in the playoffs? I don't love the other wild cards. I don't think the Rams are great. I don't think the Packers or Vikings are great. I think everybody is flawed, but I think the flaws are smaller and fewer and further between for San Francisco. And I think that's why they're above that next crop in the NFC.
It feels like for San Francisco, their flaw is, what are you going to do if you get punched in the mouth? Can you come back if you fall behind? And we saw them fall behind Baltimore, and they don't really have a plan when they get hit. Brock Purdy is not going to lead you back from a 10-point deficit. And maybe the solution to that is they're just so talented that they'll overwhelm you to start a game and they'll get out to a lead. And as long as they're always playing games on their terms, but the idea of the playoffs is stuff happens and you're playing a really good team every week instead of, kind of getting to fatten up on Arizona or, whoever it is that you get to play. Seattle's not a bad team, but they look at every time they play San Francisco. You don't get to fatten up on that. You're playing an excellent team week in, week out after your bye. How's that going to go? What's going to happen if you go behind 7-0, give up an opening drive touchdown? I have questions about that for San Francisco. I'd lean that direction if you ask me who I was picking, but I think as far as clear cut, no doubt, the way I feel about Baltimore a little bit now in the AFC, I don't think necessarily I feel the same way about San Francisco.
We will continue talking more about the NFL Week 18 matchups and a look ahead to the postseason coming up right after this break here on 580 Sports Talk. 244 on 580 Sports Talk. I'm Brendan. He's Dan. Thanks for hanging out with us today. Around the NFL this weekend, as I mentioned, there's only one game that does not feature a team that is either in the playoffs or fighting for a playoff spot. That is Jets-Patriots, which could be a snow game this weekend. All right. Give me a prediction here. We went through all the scenarios earlier this week. Who do the Chiefs end up playing in the wild card round of the postseason? They've got 5 potential teams that they could play. Who ends up being the 6th seed?
The Miami Dolphins. I think Buffalo's going to roll them on Sunday night.
Going to roll them?
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know if Xavier Howard's playing or not. I know Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips aren't. And if you can't pressure Josh Allen, you're going to have a bad time.
Yeah, I think that's true. Are you at all worried about the fact that the Bills have not been especially impressive against 2 terrible teams in the last 2 weeks? Only won by 2 over the Chargers, only 6 over the Patriots.
I am concerned about that as we get to the playoffs, but I think Buffalo's got their number. I think Miami, every time they play a real team, kind of folds, and I think Buffalo's coming into this on a bit of a high where Miami isn't, and I think that matters.
What's the course forward for Miami? Because I'm with you. I do think Buffalo wins this weekend. I think Buffalo gets the 2 seed and the Dolphins end up with the 6 seed. What's the course forward for Miami? Because I think Tua's the guy. I do. You know I like Tua Tagovailoa. They've got great pieces around him. There are obvious holes on the roster. Like, they need to keep improving that offensive line. Their defense has spots all over where they could use some help, and that's especially going to be true at edge now since Bradley Chubb is going to miss a large portion of next season with that torn ACL. But it just feels like foundationally something is missing for that team, because it's not like they get into these games and even when they lose, you think, oh, man, these knockdown, drag-out games, you can see the vision, and I still trust that they can win one of these games. I mean, a lot of times when the Dolphins lose, they look really crappy doing it. Like, they got punked by the Bills the first time they played. The time they lost to the Eagles, they were manhandled in that game. They only put up 14 points, their vaunted offense against the Chiefs. And granted, the Chiefs have a good defense, but the Dolphins looked hapless the entire second half of that game on offense. They lost to the lowly Titans a few weeks ago. They got blasted in a very meaningful game by a good Ravens team last week. Like, those are their losses. You never see them lose and you think, no, but I get it. You never have have Stone Cold Steve Austin losing to Bret Hart at WrestleMania, where he looked tough as hell, but he was going up against the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be. That him saying that, not me. I'm not a Bret Hart guy. But still, like, you don't have those moments with the Dolphins. When they lose, they get punked.
If there's like, I'm not a UFC guy, so if you are, there's probably an answer to this. They're like a fighter whose fights end in knockouts one way or another. Like, either they're landing the big punch or their opponent is landing the big punch. But either way, somebody's lights are going to be out on the canvas. And for the Dolphins, that happens more to them than it should. And so I don't know. Like, I think it feels like they should have a better plan for what happens if plan A doesn't work. But that was my criticism of them when this season started. It was my biggest question about them. Like, what happens when they get punched in the mouth? What happens if things aren't going their way in a game? Can they rally back? Can they steady the ship? Can they win, like, dig games out of the mud? And I don't know if that's a mental thing. Like, I don't think that Mike McCarthy is not Mike McDaniel is not a
different fraud team.
Yes. Not a mentally tough coach. I don't think McDaniel, I think McDaniel reaches his players. I think his players play hard for him. So I don't think that's it. Going to have to be a little introspection, I think, a little looking in the mirror from everybody on down with that organization if this season ends short of, because, like, talent-wise, like, guy for guy, even with the injuries they've got, they're as good as anybody in the AFC. But we've seen what happens against the best of the best. They get beat.
All right. So we've got Baltimore number 1. That's locked in. We're both picking the Bills to get the 2 seed with a win. Chiefs are 3rd. Jaguars beat the Titans this weekend?
I think so.
I think so, too. So that, all those results, that eliminates Pittsburgh from contention to make the postseason. Who gets the 7th seed? Is it Houston or is it Indy? I think that's gonna be a great game. We get that on Saturday, too.
That's a fascinating game.
We'll have more on this one, by the way, coming up in our picks in the 4 o'clock hour.
So I think Houston wins. And the reason I think Houston wins is we talk about Gus Bradley's defense. It's a cover 3, essentially. And Patrick Mahomes traditionally has had a lot of really, really good success against cover 3 defenses. You know who has shredded cover 3 this year? C.J. Stroud.
Yeah.
He's very comfortable against that cover 3. So I think another quarterback who's played in some big games in college, I don't think he's going to be cowed by the moment. And I expect Houston to outscore Indianapolis. I think it'll be a fun game. But I think Houston will win it.
I think so too. And I'm going to pick Houston as well in this one. Now, one concern I do have for Houston is they're not going to have, they already don't have their best receiver. He's been out for several weeks now in Tank Dell. Noah Brown is banged up for this game too. Not going to have Jonathan Greenard go for this game. Their sack leader this year. At all concerned about how much pressure they can get defensively? Because this is a well-coached defense. Not a name brand defense by any means. I think there's still a lot of improvement they could use on that side of the ball. I like some of their pieces. I like Derrick Stingley a lot, for example, at cornerback. Do you think they can stop the Indianapolis offense? Because I think that's the big question here. I have no doubts that Houston's going to be able to put up points in this game. I think, in fact, Houston's going to put up plenty of points. Will they be able to make enough stops? And does that, frankly, come down to the fact that who are you taking, C.J. Stroud or Gardner Minshew? And it might. I mean, that might be the final nail in the coffin for making that prediction.
Typically, I am not steered wrong by picking the better quarterback in a like winner take all essentially matchup. Like I'm not uncomfortable leaning on the better quarterback.
Both going to Houston. So that would make it Baltimore, Buffalo, Kansas City, Jacksonville as your division winners, Cleveland, Miami, and Houston as your wild cards. How incredible would that be if Houston made the playoffs this year?
That would be remarkable. And it's weird that like we've kind of talked about coach of the year. They could give 10 coach of the year awards this year.
Yeah. I think there are very legitimate arguments. I think it'll be Stefanski who wins it. I would vote for Shane Steichen.
If DeMeco Ryans makes the playoffs,
I mean, how do you not at least consider him in the running? I love DeMeco Ryans. I thought that was the absolute most perfect hire you could possibly come up with, and very cool for Houston.
But what about like Sean McVay? Like,
yeah,
you can tell me that Sean McVay deserves it. You can tell me that John Harbaugh is deserving what they've done in Baltimore this year. Best team in football. So we never give it to the best team, right? Like that's why how many coach of the year awards does Andy Reid have? Way less than he deserves, right? Yeah. And one I don't believe it. I think he maybe in his first year as the Chiefs coach won it. I'm going to double check that. I've got his Pro Football Reference bio in front of me. I don't know if they have like awards or not. Coach of the year, 3 times from Sporting News, once from the AP, once from the Pro Football Writers. That was in 2002.
Like that's what is so insane. As much as MVP or Comeback Player of the Year, as much as those are narrative awards, nothing is more of a narrative award than Coach of the Year.
Yeah.
May I enter a head coach who has a top 10 offense per DVOA with a first-year starting quarterback, and 98% of their receiving production is from players in their first or second year?
Go ahead and talk about Matt LaFleur.
He's not going to win it, and frankly, he shouldn't because it's way too deep. He's a good coach. It bothers me. It very much bothers me that he doesn't get the respect that some of his peers get for being as good of a coach as he is. Now, he's got to fire his defensive coordinator because he's a bald idiot. Doesn't matter that he's bald, but I'm just mad. I just hate Joe Barry so much.
Wow, hate on the man's hairline.
Yeah,
that's tough. That's how you know
it's
personal.
Yeah. Just making as many ad hominem attacks as possible. Speaking of the NFC real quick, how is that one going to shake out? First and foremost, the 7 seed, do the Packers beat the Bears?
Like, I think they do, but would it shock me? The Bears have played better football down the stretch. They seem to be rallying around Justin Fields, and maybe this is Justin Fields' closing argument. Like, hey, bring me back. Give me this extension. We've got something cooking here. The Montez Sweat trade really did revitalize our defense. Let's, build on an 8-win season and run this thing back next year with a couple of high draft picks. I could see it. That's all I'm saying.
Do you know, since week 10, where the Bears rank in EPA per play defensively? Not on offense, on defense.
I do not. Is it the Bears?
Where they rank.
Oh, where they rank? Second? Third? Something like that?
first in the NFL.
Hey, even better.
As much distance between the Bears and second place as between second and sixth place in that metric. They've been incredible on defense. And surprise, Matt Eberflus, defensive guy, has gotten his defense to play, and adding a legitimate Pro Bowler in Montez Sweat made their defense better. Wow. What a shocker that adding good players makes your team better. I do think Green Bay wins. I think Green Bay's offense puts up enough points. They beat the Bears because I mean, it's dumb to trust the Packer defense, but it's more so I just don't trust Justin Fields. If they win, though, they're running it back. Absolutely running it back with all the guys they have now.
They can, like, one red paperclip their way into, like, 5 first-round picks.
That's an interesting question. If you're going to keep Fields, do you trade the pick, number one?
Yeah.
I think you have to, right?
100%.
I mean, someone will give you 3 firsts. That's the maximum you can give, and probably 2 seconds and a third to go get Caleb Williams.
And, like, you're not going to have to break the bank for Justin Fields. You could probably do, like, a pretty modest-sized extension. Like, hey, we believe in you, but you're obviously not Lamar Jackson.
That's the fascinating part about it, is his 5th-year option is up this offseason because
Right.
you have to take it before year 4.
You have to decide on his year 5 option. And I think not only do you decide to pick that up, you may as well just, like, buy it out with an extension. Get, like,
that's what Green Bay did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think he'd take Jordan Love money because we've actually seen him play, but it's also not going to take you Jackson, Burrow, Herbert money to keep him, or Lawrence money even.
Yeah.
And if you're not having to pay your quarterback quite that much, and then you've got like a bushel of first-round picks, then things get interesting in Chicago.
Yeah, it's a fascinating case for them. Plus, they'll get Chris Jones in a trade this offseason, too. Coming up in the 3 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk, we'll lead things off with our Big 12 season preview that's coming up after our national and local news right here on 580 WIBW. final 3 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk coming your way. Brendan Dworzinski and Dan Lucero here with you. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today. We've got a basketball-heavy weekend coming your way. That starts tonight. Our Lewis Toyota High School Basketball Game of the Week doubleheader. Dan Lucero will be on the call from the Butel Center as Washburn Rural visits Hayden in a Centennial League matchup. Pre-game begins at about 5:45. Game 1 tip-off scheduled for 6 o'clock. That's the girls. The boys will follow. That action coming up right here on 580 WIBW. I'm excited for this one. I think there's going to be 2 really good games for both the boys and the girls.
Yeah, you've got 3 ranked teams taking the floor tonight. Both Hayden's boys and girls are ranked in Class 3A. Washburn Rural girls are ranked in Class 6A. It's a great rivalry. It's always a great atmosphere at the Butel Center. I know the student section is going to be rowdy and ready to make some noise tonight. Those folks, those kids at Hayden have never let me down in that department before. So, I expect a great atmosphere and a couple of really entertaining games.
So, again, that's coming up tonight. Coverage begins at 5:45 as soon as we're done here on 580 Sports Talk. Dan on the call of that one.
We are assuming, of course, that those games will be played. That is increasingly not the case for sporting events in the area today. Emporia and Topeka High basketball, that has been postponed. Highland Park and Atchison basketball has been postponed as well. But those games involve a little bit more travel than Washburn Rural and Hayden does. So hopefully the buses can travel safely between one school and the next, and we can have basketball tonight.
I did also see earlier this afternoon that Seaman is still planning to be in action. The Vikings and Lady Vikings on the road against Leavenworth. So headed east, most of the bad stuff with the weather coming from the west.
Yeah, here and westward, yeah.
So hopefully no one else is postponed or canceled tonight, and we are good to go for high school hoops across the rest of the state and across our area coming up tonight. We also have K-State hoops coming up tomorrow right here on 580 WIBW as the Cats take on UCF, the Knights, in UCF's first ever game as a Big 12 team, first ever conference game as a Big 12 team. K-State 10-3, UCF 9-3 so far this year. They've won 5 of their last 6, but they've also only played 2 high major teams and lost to both of them. Now, granted, those are some decent teams. Ole Miss, for example, they are pretty decent this year under Chris Beard. You would expect that, as gross as it is, as he's their head coach right now. They also played Miami, which, as we know, is quite good. They beat K-State earlier this year. Those are the only 2 high major teams that UCF has played, and they lost both of those games. Where do you think UCF ranks in the KenPom?
I think they're in the 100s. That's obviously cutting a pretty wide swath, but I think they'd be between 100 and 200. They're a triple-digit team.
What if I told you they were ranked higher than K-State?
That would surprise me because I thought I had read that UCF was in the hundreds.
They may have been at one point, but they are right now 76th. K-State, with that narrow win the other day over Chicago State, they slid to 78th. And K-State has a much better strength of schedule in the non-conference. I can tell you that much. UCF is in the mid-300s. K-State is at 146. So UCF getting a bit of a boost from playing and beating up on some pretty crappy teams.
I'm sorry. I've got the KenPom open now, so if you're trying to stump me anymore, then I apologize. But it's very rare that you see the Big 12 have any teams outside the top 100. They do have one. I'm sure you can guess.
Can I get... Okay, 100.
Outside the top 100.
I'm going to overthink myself. Okay, so of the newcomers, it's not
a newcomer.
Not a newcomer. Oklahoma State?
No, they're 94th.
Yeesh.
Yeah, which, again, that's usually lower than you get a Big 12 team entering conference play.
Is it West Virginia?
It is. West Virginia is 5-8, man. They are 124th. They slot in between Western Carolina and Loyola Chicago.
I know it's different because you've got a new coach and different players, and lots of things have changed from a year ago. Remember last year when they were the analytics darling? We had many conversations?
I think they were 21st in the KenPom entering conference play.
How many times did we have conversations, and did I get animated on this show last year when we would say, well, the spread is this, and West Virginia is actually the higher-ranked team according to Ken Pom and according to Tracer and all these other stats and Bart Torvik. And I would say, use your eyes. They're not good. And I'd freak out. Well, I think this is the analytics paying the piper a little bit.
Who do you think is the lowest rated Power 5 team in the Ken Pom? Because the lowest rated, if you count the Big East, DePaul is 243rd.
Yeah, I looked this up recently. I would count DePaul too as the high majors. I include the Big East as like the high majors, the 6 big leagues. Is there someone lower than DePaul?
Yes. No. I'm sorry. Nobody in the Power 6, if you will.
All right. So outside of them, is it Vandy?
It is not Vandy, but it is close. Vanderbilt is 203rd. Louisville.
Wow, they've fallen that far. Because for a while, Louisville had broken out of the 200s.
Well, they're back.
Oh, God. Like, they've got to be broker than broke to not be firing Kenny Payne.
Right.
And not trying to pay that buyout. It's embarrassing. And I don't care one way or the other about Louisville, but God, that is embarrassing how bad they are. Man, no one worse than 243, huh?
Nope.
Wow. Well, good for DePaul.
Anywho,
we'll get to our Big 12 preview coming up here in just a moment. We'll talk a little bit about KU and K-State later on. I was telling you we have a bunch of basketball coming up on our airwaves this weekend. K-State tomorrow, high school hoops tonight. We've got Washburn over on Country 106.9 tomorrow. Appreciate Mark with some kind words about last night's games in the YouTube feed. The Washburn women last night, not a true buzzer beater, but Aubrey Dewey with a runner to fall with 1.8 seconds left. They bumped it up to 2. 2 seconds left, though. She hits a runner to give Washburn's women the win. And then the men. How about the Washburn men knocking off number 12, Central Oklahoma, 75-68. Jack Batchelor, 19 points, the Washburn Rural product. So Washburn will be back in action against Newman coming up tomorrow, 12:45 start time over on Country 106.9. Let's get into the Big 12. By the way, Matt Derrick will join us later on this hour. Want to make sure you're ready to join us for Matt Derrick coming up at the bottom of the hour. But we already talked a little bit about who should be favored in the Big 12. Let's take KU and Houston out of the mix because I think everybody agrees, whether you think Houston's the best team in the league, whether you think Kansas is the best team in the league, those two are at the top. They are the top tier of the league right now. Outside of them, give me not even a dark horse, but give me who else you feel like has a very legitimate shot and should be considered among the favorites to win the Big 12 this year.
I think there are 4 teams that can actually do it. 4 teams that can actually win the league.
Okay.
I said, we talked about Houston a little earlier and KU, obviously, like this is their domain. The 2 other teams I'll give you are Baylor and Texas.
Okay.
I give you Baylor. I think they've got real high-end talent. Jacoby Walter and Eves Missy are going to be first-round picks this next year. Mm-hmm. Really, really outstanding young players. You know, Eves Missy's been playing basketball for like 5 years.
Yeah.
Averaging 11 and 6 as a freshman in
over 2 blocks a game too.
Yeah, he's something else. They've got veterans in Langston Love and Ray J. Dennis in the backcourt that complement what Jacoby Walter, is doing this year. Still got old everyday Jonathan, not giving them a ton of production this year, but like the steady hand in the front court. Mm-hmm. You can never have too many of those. Scott Drew wins a lot.
He does.
And I like the team. I think they've got good size in the backcourt. They've got some post depth. I think that's a really good team. And I think Baylor will be in the mix throughout the year. Texas, again, it's a size mix I like. It's a scoring mix with 2 guards who can really fill it in Max Asmus and Tyrese Hunter. And it's kind of like last year, like a really old team. Like Dylan DeSouza, a senior. Caden Shedrick's a senior. Asmus is a senior. Tyrese Hunter's a junior, but he's an old junior. He's played a lot of basketball. Theo Horton.
He's like 40.
Yeah, he's been around forever. Another senior. Like, that was really a big advantage. Even your boy Brock Cunningham, your favorite player in the Big 12.
Man, people gave me so much crap last year. I was like, yeah, this dude's a bum. He made 1 good shot. People, oh, you're a real bum, huh? Yeah.
Correct.
How did things go in the tournament? How'd things go in the tournament when Texas got stuck playing a bunch of Brock Cunningham in a meaningful game?
Yeah.
Didn't go well.
Anyhow.
Don't ever speak to me about Brock Cunningham being anything more than a bottom tier role player.
So they kind of have, to me, the same mix that they did last year. They've got like veteran guys who I think can see them through the course of a tough league schedule. They got crushed by Marquette earlier and also lost to UConn by 10. So like, if you're looking for a signature win for this team, like I'm going back through their schedule and trying to see if they have one of those yet. I'm not really sure that they do have a win that you'd categorize as real impressive. Like they beat LSU, but they beat LSU by 11 on a neutral floor. They didn't go to Baton Rouge and beat them by 15. K-State went to Baton Rouge, beat them by 15.
Yeah.
So no signature win for them yet. So I'm not sure how good they really are, but the mix to me is similar to what helped them be competitive and win the league tournament and make an Elite Eight run last year.
I think I would probably, man, it's tough because I think you can make an argument for either way. Who would you pick to finish higher in the standings, Baylor or Texas? Baylor is so weird this year, not because they're not usually talented, but this is such a different kind of team because Baylor for so long was, I mean, God, how long was Adam Flagler there? You had these guys who were there forever, for years. I mean, you can go back several years and name guys who had felt like they had 7-year careers at Baylor. And, Sean Mochachua is in that same category, but
now two of their best guys are one and dones.
Yeah, Jacoby Walter and Yves Missy and Ray J. Dennis is a veteran, but this is his first year at Baylor.
And his only year, probably.
Yeah, and just a bunch of guys who are freshmen or sophomores or transfers. So it looks so much different for Baylor. So I almost feel like I was unprepared for them to be this good again, even though I know they've been recruiting at such a high level. And I thought Ray J. Dennis was one of the better players in the transfer portal this year. I think he's a really nice fit for them.
That's my top four. And right now, I know I said last hour, like the numbers really like Houston. The metrics really like Houston. I think that's a really, really good team. I think they're well coached. I think they've got a chance I think they're a Final Four caliber team. I really do. If you are in the business of predicting who is going to win things and you don't pick Kansas to win the Big 12 in basketball, you're a moron. Like simply put, like you would be very dumb not to do that because it keeps happening.
Right now, using I'm at FanDuel here because that's the book of record we use for our picks all year. What do you think can I find, I might not be able to use just FanDuel. What do you think the odds are that KU wins?
Plus 300, maybe plus 200.
So according to, all right, we'll go to our pals at Vegas Insider for this. So FanDuel's got KU plus 230.
Okay.
That is the same odds as Houston. And in fact, at Caesars Sportsbook, Houston plus 140.
Wow. Hey, like I said, the numbers say Houston is the best team in the country. Never mind the league.
DraftKings also has Houston at plus 190, KU at plus 290 there. So if you were looking to if you wanted to take KU and thought, how can I possibly get any lick of value on KU? That's how. So I'm
download the DraftKings app.
Yeah, I might sprinkle a little bit on that before Big 12 play starts. Cause you're right. I mean, how can you pick against them? I understand the metrics like Houston, and Houston's a veteran team, and they've got Kelvin Sampson. They've got good talent. I understand that. Kansas in the Big 12. How do you pick against that? Just realistically, use your eyeballs, use use history to your side. All right, elsewhere in the Big 12 here. Give me a team who you think is going to surprise us in a positive way, a surprisingly good Big 12 team this year.
So we got a lot of questions as to whether BYU is legit because they were picked, I think, to finish 13th in the league, 12th or 13th. And here they are 12-1, and they're a top 15 team in the AP poll. They score 90 points a game. That is an absurd number. This is why I think it's legit and that BYU can be a top half of the league team at minimum. Age. And not like I'm not making a BYU joke here, right? Like you could theoretically make that joke every year. Oh yeah, BYU's got a bunch of like 26-year-olds that drive the family minivan to games. No, like this is a veteran team that's played a lot of college basketball. They got a bunch of old guys, and it's not just because of their circumstances as Brigham Young University. It's also due to that's what college basketball is. college basketball, there are a ton of 22 and 23 and 24-year-olds playing college basketball. And BYU's got their share. And some of them are really good. So that is my theory that, like, particularly last year, it really bore out in the tournament, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you had a veteran San Diego State team. I think they're the oldest team in the tournament. They went to the championship game. Yeah. Age really mattered in the tournament last year. Like, the older team was winning just about every matchup once you got down to the Sweet 16.
Mm-hmm.
I still think that matters to an extent. I think it mattered for Texas. I just talked about it mattering for Texas. I think it's going to matter for BYU. I think they'll be a team that I'm not ready to say top 5 for sure. Like, I think my top 4 is pretty set in stone. I'm not ready to say BYU is for sure 5th, but I think that is their ceiling, where we would have thought there's no way this is even a tournament team before the season started. But boy, 90 points a game. I don't care who you're playing. You score 90 a game and you're not running like the Paul Westhead stuff. Mm-hmm. You're doing something pretty well. You're shooting the heck out of the ball.
For me, and it's the same kind of category where I don't know that I could guarantee you they're going to be the 5th, because I agree with you on the top 4. I think KU, Houston, Baylor, Texas are certainly the 4 best teams in the league. I'm going with TCU, though. I have not heard anyone talk about TCU. You want to talk about a team that has experience and a team that's got some old guys? All of the biggest contributors for this TCU team are all dudes who have been around forever. Emmanuel Miller, Micah Peavy, Jameer Nelson Jr., who's a transfer, but he's played a lot of college basketball. Avery Anderson is still playing college basketball. How? I felt like he was a freshman when I was a freshman in 2013.
7 of their top 8 scorers are seniors.
They are old. Chuck O'Bannon is still around somehow. Xavier Cork had some really nice moments last year.
Chuck O'Bannon is still playing. Dude, get a job.
For real. See, Alan Bowman is eligible again.
Yes, I talked about that yesterday. I said, Alan, it is time to go pro in something other than sports.
I mean, hey, if you can make it work, hanging out in Stillwater and playing football is probably better than, working in an office doing a 9 to 5.
So Micah Peavy's a senior, and he was rated 37th in the top 100 in his class, in the class of 2020, and he is a senior.
The class of 2020.
Yes. So, like, Micah Peavy's on time, right? Like, that's what a senior is.
Yeah.
Traditionally. Chuck O'Bannon was the 36th ranked high school prospect in his senior class of 2017.
Okay, so class of 2017.
You know who the best player in that class was? Marvin Bagley III. You know who was second best? Michael Porter Jr.
I was going to say, so that was Billy Preston's class.
This is the DeAndre Ayton class. Guy's had a whole NBA career. Jaren Jackson Jr.,
who's been Defensive Player of the Year in the NBA since then.
Yes, all of these guys are the same age as Chuck O'Bannon, and he's still out there playing college basketball.
That is so funny. Oh, that is awesome.
Get that man a LinkedIn profile. Trae Young was in that class.
Yeah, this is an incredible remember some guys. And it's not even really remember them. Like, a lot of these dudes
are... Gilgeous-Alexander, same class. The reigning player of the month in the Western Conference.
The namesake of the hottest rap song circa like 2018, 19. Mo Bamba was the 4th overall player in that class. Kids don't even know Mo Bamba these days.
No, Mo Bamba does not set it off like it used to.
I feel like Mitchell Robinson has been in the NBA for 8 years. He was in that class. Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah, he was having a breakout year this year, too, before he got hurt.
Yeah, you know who else? Speaking of KU players who were in that star-crossed class, Silvio De Sousa. Yeah, both Porter brothers. That's unbelievable. Lindell Wigington at Iowa State was in that class.
We thought he was old when he finally quit playing college basketball.
Jeremiah Tillman was ragged on for being a grandpa when he played for forever, and he's been out of the game for multiple years at this point. God, that is Jericho Sims.
You know who hung around and played college basketball forever out of that class? Former K-State Wildcat Mark Smith. And that was 2 seasons ago.
God. Marcus Garrett was in that class. And that dude is still, not Mark Garrett, but Chuck O'Bannon is still playing.
Even Jalen Coleman Lands is like, dude, give it up.
There's
a great big world outside.
Wow.
Van Wilder ass basketball team.
Nogel Eastern was in that class. Purdue, great. That's unbelievable.
I think I opened my mouth to make a Van Wilder joke at the same time. Paul hit our YouTube comments with Chuck O'Bannon saw Van Wilder and was like, yeah, I can do that.
So that's why, because TCU, you want to talk about old, TCU's got dudes who should be, like on their third kid at this point, like married with a house and a mortgage, and they're playing college basketball.
Hey, people are having kids later and later these days.
Yeah, that is true. Ernest Uday, he's not been like otherworldly, but he's been fine. 4.5 points, 5.5 boards a game. I just really like their talent.
They've got a real post presence this year instead of like hoping Eddie Lampkin was going to be healthy and invested on a game by game basis.
Oh man,
he was never both things at once.
No, God, watching him try to play after he got hurt at KU was just brutal.
I don't sense they're enjoying the Eddie Lampkin experience in Boulder this season. I would have to double check, but he had a good game against somebody a couple of games ago, but non-factor against Arizona last night. He talked a big game going into that one, like, hey, they eliminated me for the tournament when I was at TCU. I got something for him. Arizona beat Colorado by 1,000,000 points last night. And I know CU was without the two best guys, but Eddie Lampkin still just he's a lot of talk.
What year do you think Avery Anderson was a recruit?
Don't tell me. Don't tell me 2017.
Not 2017. He's a little bit younger than that. 2019.
Oh, 2019? Okay.
Yeah. Anthony Edwards was the number one. James Wiseman.
Okay, that's a little more reasonable. Like that means you took a redshirt season. Like there are a lot more like redshirt seniors kicking around college basketball. That's one thing.
But
it's like the redshirt / COVID / transfer / grad transfer guys like Chuck O'Bannon. I don't even think he took a transfer year. I think he's playing.
Okay, so
he played parts of 3 seasons at USC. This is the 7th season in which he has appeared in a college basketball game.
Wow. That's unbelievable, man.
He's played 122 career college basketball games.
That's unbelievable. By the way, and I know we'll get to one final Big 12 note here in just a second, I promise. I was doing my game prep for Washburn for tomorrow's games, right? Taking on Newman. Newman's got a player named Carrington Davis. He hasn't played a lot this year. He's been pretty banged up. Carrington Davis was a freshman at Nebraska in 2018, 2019. So he was class of 2018, went to a Big Ten school.
Yeah.
Redshirted that year, didn't play. Transferred to Southern Illinois. Played 2 seasons there. Then transferred to Lindenwood. After he spent a year at Butler County Community College, and now he is at Newman. He is on his 5th school.
Wow.
They have another player who is on his 4th school, but it's his first 4-year institution. He went to 3 different JUCOs.
3 JUCOs is crazy.
You got to love the grind more than you love anything else to play at that many junior colleges.
Did he redshirt a year at JUCO?
I don't think so. I think he played at all of them.
Because I know, like, even if you were at a JUCO, you got the COVID year was still free. So there were like juniors playing junior college athletics a couple of years ago.
That's insane.
I remember I was doing PA for some Colby Community College stuff back when I was in the Northwest and ran into a couple of juniors for Butler Community College. That threw me for a loop. Like, that's not allowed. Wait a minute.
What do you mean junior? Yeah, I think we did the math a while back. We're still probably 2 full years away from getting all those players out of college sports.
Yeah.
Getting out. Like, good for them to, keep getting playing time and NIL.
Dreams, but at the same time, man, like, I think college, who was it that was saying that, like, one of the big problems with college basketball and the caliber of play, you got a bunch of 24-year-olds hanging around who are actually that good. They're just old.
Yeah. No, it's true, though. Remember, it's football, not basketball. Remember Austin Awney at Texas? Well, I think it was North Texas.
Yes, he played minor league baseball, and he came back and played football. Yeah, like a Brandon Whedon type deal. He was like 29 playing college football.
Worse than Brandon Whedon. He was 29 when he left school. Whedon was 28 and got drafted.
That's what college basketball needs. We need another Mark Hendrickson or Pat Connaughton type to play like 6 years in the bigs or something, and then come back and say, I got a little eligibility left. Let's hoop it up.
Pat Connaughton. Speaking of remember some Notre Dame guys, you know who I found out recently was almost my parents' neighbor?
Who's that?
Luke Herringody. One of my best friends.
Wow, almost your parents' neighbor. It was like he was your parents' neighbor.
One of my best friends lived on the opposite side of my parents' block, and his family, they just sold their house. And apparently right down to closing, they thought they were going to sell it to the all-time leading scorer in Notre Dame history.
Wow,
and then he backed out.
Oh.
So there you go. All right, real fast, because I wrote this down. We freaking better get to it. One team who's going to be disappointingly bad this year.
Like relative to expectations, or relative to where they are now. I don't know. I had higher hopes for West Virginia, given the composition of their roster, but then they had some guys leave and some guys get hurt, and it's just bad. It's all bad. They're going to finish dead last.
Bob Huggins leaving also didn't help. I'm going with OU based on where they are now. I don't trust them. I like Porter Moser. Again, teams that turn over their roster so much year after year, I just don't trust them. I didn't trust them last season. They weren't a hard team to play. It wasn't like, oh, you go to Norman and it's a hard game. I don't think it's going to be a pretty year for Oklahoma overall.
Yeah, like good for Otega Owe playing some good basketball, but it's not really not an old team, so to speak. And like they did this last year, like crushed Alabama in non-conference, and I was like, whoa, Oklahoma, they really got it going, and then they didn't do anything in the Big 12. Like I have yet to see proof of concept that Porter Moser's stuff works in the Big 12 conference.
We'll get to a quick on second thought next, and Matt Derrick will join us later on this hour, coming up on 580 Sports Talk. All right, a quick on second thought before we get to Matt Derrick. What was your worst take this week?
This week? I was going to say this year, when it comes back to my NFL predictions, I was looking back at the NFL picks we made to start the season as we round out the year, and it kind of gets obvious what we were right about, what we were wrong about.
Yeah.
I picked the Falcons to win the NFC South. I did not realize fully, I guess, what a melt brain Arthur Smith is.
Yeah.
Like, just the most galaxy brain coach. What if I took my two best offensive players and found ways to not get them the football?
They also have the least efficient rushing offense in the NFL, despite having Bijan Robinson Robinson. They spent a top 10 pick on a running back, and they can't even use him.
Look, he's going to have fresh legs for the playoffs. You can't buy that. Like, it's huge to have a player like that feel like he's really fresh going into the postseason, which they won't be in, of course.
I'll give you a full year NFL 1-2. I still believe Bryce Young can be a good NFL player. I said he was clearly QB1 over CJ Stroud.
You picked the Panthers to win the NFC South, by the way.
Did I really?
Yeah, you did.
Wow. Okay. Well,
whoops.
I'm going to go delete some files real quick while we go to a commercial break. Matt and Derrick's going to join us next on 580 Sports Talk. Yikes. Let's go to Kansas City, where we chat with our Chiefs insider, Matt Derrick, who covers the Kansas City Chiefs for ChiefsDigest.com. You can also find him on Twitter at Matt Derrick. He joins us this time every Friday on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. Matt, before we get to the Chiefs, because frankly, there's not a whole lot to dissect this week when you're playing the JVs in a Week 18 game that isn't going to change your playoff seeding. I wanted to give you the floor. Would you like to say anything, celebrate, gloat about your beloved alma mater winning their New Year's Six bowl game?
I think the best thing that you can possibly do, Brandon, just in a case like this, is just act like you've been there before. So, yeah, I mean, another Cotton Bowl, another win. Don't know what else there is to say. Just it's what we do at Mizzou.
I know that Ohio State was on their 9th string quarterback or whatever, but that's still a team that their backups are 4 and 5 stars. I got to be honest, man, that was a very impressive outing for your Tigers.
Oh yeah, I'll still take it, even though there's a few asterisks next to it. And hey, you know what? Mizzou didn't have some of its biggest names on defense either, even though it had most of its offensive weapons and everything. So yeah, I mean, no, I mean, I thought for us here in Kansas City, especially with all the three area schools, Kansas and Kansas State too, 3-0 in the bowl games, that's pretty cool. So we'll see what it means for next year. I mean, but I would think that Mizzou at this point got to be like a top 15 program to begin the year next year. We'll see if they can live up to it.
I wouldn't be surprised if they were closer to top 10. I got to be honest too with you, Matt. I am a firm believer in anyone who's like, well, there's an asterisk. Oh, well, they were playing this team that didn't have their guys. Throw it all out. The only exception being Florida State, because they literally like barely even played in the Orange Bowl. But like, no, celebrate. Don't tell me that, well, we played a bad team or they didn't have their guys. No, life is hard and difficult and sucks a lot of the time. I'm going to celebrate the good thing. So I hope that you have been able to spend the last week celebrating and going crazy, Matt, because you and your co-fans deserve it, even though it doesn't even hurt me a little bit. Everyone wins. Everybody gets to eat in bowl season this year. I'm happy for everyone.
I mean, I'm not going to lie. I did. There's the guy that brings me up in the morning for my donuts and everything is an Ohio State fan. So this is the first time I saw him this morning. I'm not gonna lie. I threw a little bit of an elbow. I mean, I did say, "Hey, sorry about your Buckeyes and everything." That was probably a little mean. So I probably celebrated a bit too much there.
It's Ohio State fans. It's okay. I mean, I'm sure this gentleman is a fine human being, but like we all know that one Ohio State fan. I think everyone's got a story.
Oh yeah, there's no, definitely. I mean, it's just like Texas. I mean, any time you to get chances to kick some dirt on them, you absolutely do.
I was going to say, I don't know. I'm assuming the SEC schedule's out. Do you guys play Texas next year?
I want to say that we do, because I think it's like Oklahoma. I know Oklahoma's on the schedule and A&M. I want to say Texas is too, because I thought it was just that they were trying to get the old Big 12 back together for 1 year, so they all kind of saw each other and everything. So I think that is. Like I said, I know for sure Oklahoma's on the schedule, but I think Texas is as well. So. Maybe they're trying to break it up, but I'm looking forward to it. I mean, Texas is going to get a rough welcoming to the SEC because everybody now is going to hate Texas.
Good. I hope they do. Does this mean that the peace pipe is coming back?
I hope everything comes back. I mean, we need to get everything back. So I'm hoping that all the old trophies come out. I mean, eventually. We gotta. If we don't get back together with a regular series with Iowa State to get the telephone trophy out, I mean, then college football just doesn't have any purpose.
Hey, I agree with that. I have this pipe dream of, and get this, it's mostly plain states, and it's just 8 teams that have all played each other for about 100 years, and that's the conference, and they just play each other in a round robin alternating home and away every single year. You can call it something like the Big 8. That's my dream conference, but just kind of a pipe dream.
Return, reject modernity, embrace tradition.
Someday we'll get back to that point. I hope we get back to that point. That way we can get KU Mizzou every year again.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
All right, we're talking to Matt Derrick from ChiefsDigest.com, joining us here on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. We were talking to Matt Derrick. The call just dropped. You heard it click right there. But we'll get Matt Derrick back here in just a moment. It happens sometimes. That's live radio for you. Do have a little Chiefs to get to. Of course, you'll be able to hear Chiefs Chargers coming up on 580 WIBW, the sports voice of Kansas, coming up on Sunday. So we will have that coming up. You'll hear Mitch Holthus and the entire gang talking all things Kansas City Chiefs, calling that broadcast, calling the Blaine Gabbert game. And speaking of Missouri, Matt, Blaine Gabbert getting the call for the Chiefs this weekend. I know that Andy Reid said they're trying to win. And just because Patrick Mahomes and maybe some other guys aren't playing, they're still trying to win. But realistically, the Chiefs are punting on this game, right? Like, you don't sit Patrick Mahomes for non-injury reasons and not be, at least to a degree, punting on the game.
I mean, they are going to try to win. And the fact that they're going to try hard and they'll call some plays and everything. But no, I mean, you're not putting everything into it. You're certainly, it's like you alluded at the very beginning, it's a JV week. You get some playing time for the guys who haven't gotten a lot of playing time. You're not going to be calling the exact same game plan that you would if you needed this game. I mean, you're going to be doing a few things differently. So, no, I mean, you are going to. I mean, the guys who play are going to play hard. So you can count on that. And I don't even know what kind of effort you're going to get on the other side of the football. Because I think in this situation like this, when you're the Chargers, I think it's just everybody's playing for themselves. You can get some great performances because guys are just playing for contracts for next year and to position themselves. But I can't imagine that there's a whole lot of everybody's pulling on the same oar over there right now.
The rest of the offense and guys who have, the easy incentives to get, like, I don't know if there's an incentive for it, but Travis Kelce getting to 1,000 yards, Isaiah Pacheco just trying to keep him, as fresh as possible for the playoffs. Do you expect any of those guys to play in this game?
I mean, Kelsey's the one I really still can't get an arm around. I mean, I think that he might play. I think that everybody around him wants to get him in there and get those 16 yards that he needs for a 1,000-yard season. I seriously think that the person in the building who cares the least about it is Travis himself. I think he would largely take it easy this week, and he has, at least at practice. I mean, he took one day off and limited a couple of days. So, and we did get to see him in the locker room today. He was shooting hoops with Marquez Valdez-Scantling, playing some one-on-one. So he's in fine shape and feeling good. I wouldn't be surprised, frankly, just either way. Like I said, I mean, I think everybody around him wants it more than he does. I'm sure that down the road, I think that he will, if he sits out, I think he might have wished later on that he did try to go after that 1,000-yard season. But who knows? But I think everything else is probably going to err on the side of caution. I mean, obviously, they've already ruled out Rashee Rice, who could have had the team record for receiving yards and could have had a 1,000-yard season. I'm thinking probably Pacheco is not going to play. We'll see. But I think that for the most part, if you're a veteran and they can sit you, you're going to sit. I mean, Nick Allegretti told us that he's starting at center. We'll see if maybe they do rotate some guys in. But Lucas Niang, Mike Caliendo, they will all play. But you're limited. I mean, you gotta fill the other spots. So a couple of starters are going to have to be in there probably at all times. But we'll see. But I think for the most part, Kelsey's being the one question mark. I think everybody else is going to sit.
Our guest is Matt Derrick from ChiefsDigest.com. He is our Chiefs insider, and he joins us every Friday at this time on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline here on 580 Sports Talk. Check out Matt's coverage of the Chiefs at ChiefsDigest.com and on Twitter at Matt Derrick. Matt, defensively, we're going to see some different faces play a lot more scrimmage downs in this game than we've seen them play throughout the year, and I think that's going to be the case at all three levels on the defense. Which players are you most intrigued to see get a full game's opportunity against the Chargers?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to narrow it down because it's a lot. I mean, I think I'll try and limit myself maybe to one player at each position group because I think everybody's going to have Felix Anudike-Uzomah on their list. Really kind of want to see what he could do with a bunch of snaps. He played, and we got to talk to Joe Colin and Steve Spagnuolo a little bit about him this week and about his lack of work. And and Colin really pointed to the fact that, hey, early in the season when Chris didn't report for week one, and then and Charles Omenihu was out for those first 6 weeks, they did lean on Felix a little bit early on, and then once Chris got back and was at a full workload, and then Omenihu came back in week 6, that they really backed him off. And it was really just more of just a depth chart at that point, that they've had a lot of other guys playing well in front of him and just didn't feel the need to rush him into anything. They've been happy with what they've gotten out of him. But and even early in the season when we got to see him a lot, it was mostly in third down situations. So I'd like to see Felix in a lot more, every down plays, see what he can do with a large number of snaps. I'm really intrigued to see a guy like Cam Jones, who we have only really seen at the linebacker spot on special teams, but I'd like to see what he can do. I mean, Chiefs, we'll see about, who's going to be back next year, because obviously it's a contract year again for Drew Tranquil, Willie Gay. There might be some turnover there. Is Cam Jones a piece you can use going forward? Let's see. And then I can't have to kind of narrow myself to two in the secondary, just because we haven't seen a ton of Nick Jones and Echo Boydo. But I kind of want to see those guys. I mean, we'll see how much they get. I'm sure Joshua Williams and Jalen Watson will play quite a bit just to keep them fresh. But those two young guys, I mean, I think that they could both be pieces for the future. So I want to see what they can do.
There are two schools of thought. You go into a game like this and the result literally doesn't matter. And one of them is just, let's run the rock. Let's have as few opportunities to get guys hurt as possible. And let's just get out of here and with an eye on the playoffs. But That's never really been how Andy Reid gets down. It's never really been how the Chiefs have gotten down under Andy Reid. Whoever's out there, they are always seemingly playing to win. Do you get that vibe from the Chiefs this week, that is still very much on the minds of even guys like Blaine Gabbert, that this result, maybe it doesn't affect anything in the standings, but it absolutely matters in that room?
I think it definitely does, and I think it matters just because by and large, they want these guys to go out there and have fun and play well, and that's I think that the biggest thing that Blaine Gabbert's obviously been focused on this week on the offensive side with the young guys is he just wants them to play loose, and he doesn't want them to be uptight, and I think that's probably true on the defensive side as well. But that's kind of the message that at least I've been getting this week has just been, hey, these young guys are getting a chance to play. It should be fun for them. It shouldn't be a stressful situation. It is low impact. They would like for guys to go out there and have some success, and I think that the best way to have that happen is just go out there and play loose and free. And I think part of that in playing loose and free is to, let them have some fun. I mean, not just run the football and play ABC football, but, go out and let them run the Chiefs offense, execute some plays. I don't think they're going to necessarily run any, wasp or ring around the rosy or anything like that, but we'll see. But I think that's fun has probably been the one thing that I think has been emphasized the most this week. It's on the one hand, you get the starters who are getting a little bit of a break, so they kind of get to rest up a little bit and sit back and watch the younger guys and to offer their critiques and even rib them a little bit here and there. The young guys, are finally getting a lot of reps, so they're having a blast. That was probably one of the today, in the locker room was probably one of the looser, more relaxed locker rooms I've seen from this team in a long time.
Matt Derrick is our guest. He covers the Kansas City Chiefs for ChiefsDigest.com. He also can be found on Twitter at Matt Derrick, and he joins us for our Chiefs Insider every single Friday at this time on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. Matt, looking ahead to the wild card round of the playoffs, who would the Chiefs most want to play in that wild card round? They'll get them at home, but there are 5 different potential options. Who do you think the Chiefs would rather face in that first playoff game?
I mean, I think you would probably just want the team that you think is going to put up the least amount of fight. And, in that sense, I think you'd have to circle the 3 teams in that group of Steelers, Texans, and Colts, just because they're talent-wise and competition-wise, I think it's different tiers than the other 2 options. To me, the Dolphins and the Bills are a separate category. And even though whichever of those teams that you face will be coming off a loss, I still think the Dolphins and the Bills are the tougher test. If you can avoid having to play one of those teams, great. But at the same time, I mean, I would also probably want to play both of those teams at the home if I had to. So, I mean, the likelihood is that the Chiefs if they're going to advance in the playoffs, they're probably going to have to play the Dolphins or Bills on the road as the 2 seed. And who would you want that to be? Honestly, I think I'd rather go to Miami than have to go to Buffalo. So, maybe in some ways you should be rooting for Miami, get 2 seed. Maybe that way but then you might end up more likely facing Buffalo as the 6. So, whereas, if Miami loses, you're facing them as the 6. But that would be hey, if you just want the easiest path to advancing, I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, Texans, Colts, and Steelers are all a notch below you. So those are games that you should win, especially at home.
What's the bigger deal with facing Miami? The fact that you could potentially go and play in better weather, or the fact that it's the Dolphins?
I mean, I think it's twofold to me. I mean, one, it's the Dolphins and a team that you really match up well against, and 2, it's a team that's really, really banged up. I mean, I can't see the Dolphins really getting healthy. They got a few guys who are out that are really, truly critical pieces, both offensively and defensively. They're not in the greatest health shape that they've been in this season. So, to me, I mean, especially considering the Dolphins have had a tough time dealing with higher end competition, it wouldn't matter to me whether it's home or road. I mean, I think that's the team that I would want to face because I just think they're the best matchup for the Chiefs. We know the Bills are a tough matchup.
Matt Derrick covers the Kansas City Chiefs better than anyone, and you can find his work at ChiefsDigest.com. You can also go, and I would recommend, follow the Chiefs Digest YouTube page. Find all sorts of video content, video podcast, locker room interviews, and whatnot over there on YouTube. Follow him on Twitter at Matt Derrick, and he joins us every single Friday at this time here on 580 Sports Talk for our Chiefs Insider. Matt, you're the absolute best, man. Thank you so much for stopping by, and enjoy Week 18.
We'll do our best. You too, Brendan. Take care, everybody.
That's Matt Derrick from ChiefsDigest.com, the absolute best when it comes to coverage of the Kansas City Chiefs. Halfway home on 580 Sports Talk on this Feel Good Friday afternoon. Come on back for the 4 o'clock hour. We've got What Is Wrong With You. We'll talk some college hoops, and we will get you our weekly NFL game picks. Those are all coming up next hour on 580 Sports Talk. now halfway home on 580 Sports Talk on this Red Friday, Feel Good Friday edition of the show. Thanks so much for spending some time with the two of us. I'm Brendan Dworzinski. That's Dan Lucero. We've got our game picks for the weekend coming up in just a few minutes. Just a few moments, really. We have changed up the pick order, the pick selection for this week. We normally do 2 college picks, 2 NFL picks, and a wild card. Well, this week, with only one FBS game left this season, that's the national championship. We'll break that all down on Monday. We have one college game, period. That's the FCS national championship game, Montana versus South Dakota State. We decided we'll do our regular 2 NFL picks against the spread, and then 3 wild card picks. Anything else from the football world we can get to, we will pick that coming up in just a few moments for our final regular season NFL game picks. I'm 2.5 behind Dan. We have none of the same picks, though, for this week. So it is possible that I can still overcome and beat Dan this year. It will take something of a miracle, but it is possible. So we'll get to that coming up here in just a few moments. We've got today's What Is Wrong With You. We will find our weekly winner. Bobbing for Fries tries to maintain the wire-to-wire win for the week. And then we will preview some KU and K-State basketball coming up this weekend. KU plays TCU. K-State plays UCF. I was hoping to have a little Chiefs audio for you from today, but unfortunately, the Chiefs audio feed cut out, or the video feed cut out of their press conferences from earlier today, and Andy Reid only ended up speaking for a minute and a half anyway, but we didn't hear from any of the players because they never were able to get the live audio for us. So that's the big sometime. I was watching Andy Reid. I heard him answer Matt's question about Travis Kelce. Then I heard, and then the audio and video went away, and it just said, stay tuned for more press conferences, and then it was gone. and the feed was gone. So unfortunately, won't have that for you today, but we do have plenty to get to coming up in this 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk. We'll also take your texts and your comments on YouTube. I should note that as well. 785-272-9429 is the text line number. YouTube comments can be found on our stream. Our channel is called 580 Sports Talk, just like the name of the show. Today, by the way, I was very amped up. I'm wearing 2 different Christmas presents today. It's like first day at school after Christmas. Like, ooh, I got all sorts of new school clothes. I got 2 different retro Packers sweatshirts. One is dark green. I wore it on Tuesday. That my wife got me. My sister got me the championship team from Super Bowl 31, all the player faces on it. It's so 90s. It's unbelievable. But I am a big fan. Also,
they got my guy Keith Jackson on there, the backup tight end.
No, unfortunately.
They don't? I think
so.
that's number 88.
Is that him?
I think that's him. Day 7 was Antonio Freeman.
Yeah.
And Robert Brooks would have been 80, I think.
Let me see here for you. That was Reggie Johnson, or 88. Unless I'm looking at the wrong roster here. Oh, no, I was looking at the wrong roster. I was looking at 97. We needed the 98 roster. And in that case, 88 was indeed Keith Jackson. There you go.
Look, man, something you never forget. Some things you never forget from when you were 10.
I would not have been able to pull that name, to be completely honest with you, because I was 2.
No, Keith Jackson, history was kinder to him as far as the tight ends on that team go.
Why? What's wrong with Mark Chmura?
Where do you want me to start? In a hot tub somewhere.
Yeah. Not great. Not great for Mark Chmura. Mark Chmura was part of that great video of the Packers players who showed up at Mike Holmgren's house trick-or-treating that one time.
Yeah, him and Frank Winters. Like, those two were Favre's boys.
Yeah.
Like, Favre didn't go anywhere in Green Bay without Frank Winters, his center, and Mark Chmura. I distinctly remember this.
So here's what I know about Frank Winters. I know that he knew the janitor at my high school, because anytime I wore Packers gear to school, the janitor would stop me in the hallway and say, you know who Frank Winters is? And I'd say, I do, because you told me about him on Monday. And I'd be like, yeah, I know, Packers champion, friends with Favre. He's like, I used to hang out with Frank all the time, and I got to meet Brett. And I was like, that's cool, man. Thank you. I look forward to hearing this story in 48 hours.
There was a time where it was cool to have, met Brett Favre or have hung out with Brett Favre or have a Brett Favre jersey or a signed Brett Favre pennant that now sits in your basement and is not hung up and you don't know what the hell to do with it. There was a time.
I feel like, well, I don't know. This isn't quite the Gary Glitter conversation we had the other day.
No.
Because that's
Brett Favre creep, absolutely, but not like that.
Yeah.
No, like we're not like
now if it was signed by Mark Chmura.
Yes, his peccadillos were inappropriate, yes, but did not probably rise to like the level of criminal in that particular department.
Yeah.
Like there's no law that says you can't text yourself to a woman who's not your wife. You just shouldn't do it because it's not cool. Nobody wants that. And it's also not cool to your wife to do that to other women. Anyhow, like the criminal stuff is the criminal stuff. Like two different things. The criminal stuff also not cool. May I have millions of dollars that belong to the state so that I can build my daughter's college team a new volleyball gym.
Dude, that's so... It's frustrating. It's
super villain
sad.
stuff, man.
Well, that stuff is the fact that he is such a bad guy. And I mean, look, when he was winning and when he was at the peak of his powers, like you couldn't touch Brett Favre. When I was a kid, I wasn't into superheroes, man. I was into watching Brett Favre play football. Like that was a superhero to me.
Yeah.
And to like the entire state of Wisconsin, much of northern Illinois.
And it was an inspiring story because he had overcome, like he had overcome alcoholism and a crippling pill addiction. And like he had overcome those things. And it felt like a heartwarming story when he won that third MVP and finally won a Super Bowl. Like that was a big deal.
Kid from Kiln, Mississippi, played high school football for his dad, threw the ball 5 times a game in like that. Or in high school, and then in college played more at Southern Miss and like, real country bumpkin guy. And
yeah, he could have spent the remainder of his life as like, doing the rubber chicken circuit and being one of the more beloved ex-athletes around. Like, because who didn't love Brett Favre?
My uncle, my late Uncle Bob, who I loved that guy, and he was a huge Bears fan. And he used to tell me, he said, I don't like Brett Favre, but I respect him so much. The way he plays and what, his story and all that.
Yeah, even if you weren't rooting for him, he was enjoyable to watch play, and he was charismatic, and it was always, funny when he was mic'd up. Like he should have been years into like a successful television career.
Well, he was on Sirius XM. He had a show, him and one of those stand-in hosts, and it was like, well, Brett, what do you think about this thing? Tell me a story.
But it could have been,
okay, that's our hour.
But it could have been bigger than that. Like the Jen Sturger thing kept it from being bigger than that. Like he should be on the NFL on Fox. Like it should have been him yucking it up with Howie and
he
Terry.
should have replaced Terry Bradshaw.
Yes, it should have been that for years and years and years and years. And he threw that away. And that is depressing in a lot of different ways.
I'm trying to think. I mean, there have been plenty of stories of athletes who have thrown it all away. But to do it in such disgusting like, dog, you systematically stole from poor people. Right. And not even just poor folks. Like the people
poor people in one of the poorest states in the union.
Yeah. God, just so gross. Do you know how hard it's going to be for me in 15 years if it turns out Jordan Love, like, I don't even... At this point, if he was like just spewing your basic level conspiracy theories, I'd be like, oh, that's cool. If he was like, hey, did you know that the government made Britney Spears freak out so they could cover up what happened overseas during the Iraq war? I'd be like, oh, that's all he believes? Oh, wow, okay. Wow, that's pretty normal for Packers quarterbacks.
Pick your heroes very, very carefully. I feel good for the youngsters in this area who have Patrick Mahomes to look up to, because the absolute last thing I would ever expect is for Patrick Mahomes to do the wrong thing or be about the wrong thing. Yeah. And not just because he's image conscious. I genuinely believe that's a decent human being.
Oh, no, I do too. I think so too. I do think that he probably I think he's probably got a pretty good PR team because,
and his dad was an athlete. Like he understands like what it is to be about the right things. And I think he is.
What is the worst thing that has publicly happened to Patrick Mahomes' image? He got
his brother.
I was going to say he got mad at the refs one time, and his brother might be kind of a creep.
But yeah, that's one, like, if I had like an 8-year-old child, right, I would buy that jersey without any sort of hesitation and feel pretty good that, some 30 years from now, he's not going to be hiding that signed pennant in the basement because, again, he doesn't know what to do with it because it doesn't feel right to put it up anywhere.
Yeah, I don't have any. I had a poster from when Brett Favre did his return to Lambeau, like Packers celebrity game. My best friend went to Wisconsin. He drove to Green Bay and saw it and got me a poster and whatnot. So I had that up in my apartment for a while, but that one's collecting dust somewhere right now. And I don't think that's going to see the light of day again.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of who, man. So one of my buddies, he's a Bears fan, but he's just big sports guy in general. I didn't know he was a Tyreek Hill fan. I was unaware of that until he showed me a picture the other day of his dog wearing a Tyreek Hill shirt.
Huh.
I thought, why are you doing that?
That would not have been a jersey I would have chosen to buy a young child in his time as a Chief or his time as a Dolphin or whatever team he plays for. That's one you got to sit your kid down, have a little conversation about. It's great that he's fast and it's great you can enjoy him play football. But this is also a thing that Tyreek Hill did, and that's not a thing that I endorse and that you should either.
Son and or daughter, this is what we call separating art from artist.
Yes.
You can understand that he is a very good football player.
I'm sure every parent remembers the first time they had to have that conversation of, hey, I see you dancing to PYT by Michael Jackson. Let me tell you why you maybe shouldn't go all in on him being your favorite musical artist.
This is why you are not allowed to look up any more lyrics to old Red Hot Chili Peppers songs, son.
I was hoping to pass down the Ignition remix to my kids someday. That will not happen.
Yeah. I heard that come up. I had that saved on a playlist on my Spotify, from whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm listening to it. It's like, it's from when I was in high school or college or whatever. And I heard that come on the other day and I thought, ew. Like, we always kind of knew it was gross. Anything R. Kelly, like, we knew.
Yeah.
Everyone knew, but it was like, it's the Ignition guy.
It's the difference between knowing and knowing.
Yeah, like, bump and grind, like a song.
Knowing everybody's saying that about him, and then knowing he's got like an inmate number now.
Yeah,
he's never gonna see the light of day again.
I can't listen to those anymore.
Ugh.
Let's talk about something fun. You want to get some game picks?
Yes, let's please.
A lot of game picks to get to for this weekend.
At the end of the day, your sweatshirt and also your hat are very nice.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I didn't even get my Coastal Carolina hat on. I've been waiting.
Is that you get the Chanticleer on the back there?
Oh yeah.
Oh, very cool.
Oh yeah. Technically the front. I was wearing this hat front ways like up until 2:00 today. My hair is so long. It is so long, and I can't get it under the brim of the hat right now.
The backward thing, kind of your brand. When we get to the YouTube stream, I think people would be surprised you wear the hat forward at this point.
It really is. I'm going to put to the test here in the coming years, like how old can you be to wear your hat backwards? I'm a believer that wear whatever you want. Like life's too hard and too short to care.
In my mid 30s, was noticing that I was starting to do it a lot more often. This was like after COVID, where you could start like wearing hats, and I had a different job. I could wear a hat to work every day, and like I started wearing it backwards a lot. I'm like, am I having a midlife crisis? Is that what this is?
I'm hitting the big 3-0 next year. Well, no, shoot, it's 2024.
Yeah, it is already
this
2024.
year. So this September is when I hit 30. So I don't know. Am I going to suddenly feel like I got to turn it around?
I'm going to give you this. Ken Griffey Jr. still makes it look cool.
Yeah, but
you're not Ken Griffey Jr. But
no,
you can still say, if you want, hey, Ken Griffey Jr. still wears his caps backwards.
Yeah.
And he looks cool.
I think my answer would probably just be, I'm too old to care.
I guess you were probably a little too young for that to have been your like backwards ball cap inspiration. But I remember when I was in second, third grade, kids, you go to baseball practice and wear your hat backwards until your coach told you to put that hat on right. And
Are you Ken Griffey Jr.?
And a lot of times, coach was my dad. So that was,
you had to listen to that one.
Yeah. Looked like a ball player.
Oh, God, yeah.
No, and I took that very seriously until I was no longer a ball player. And like, all right, I'm going to wear this backwards.
Yeah, it's a good look. It's a good fit. Now, my hats, although they are all like misshapen. I have a bunch that I've had for years that, I wear all the time. I try to put them on forward. They don't fit.
You get those...
because they are shaped for the back of my head.
Now that is funny. I thought you were saying like the sometimes you get those new era caps that are just a little too tight up at the top. They look like a train conductor hat. Your head doesn't quite fill it. So one time, in fact, I have a Coastal Carolina hat kicking around somewhere.
Huh.
Buddy of mine went there. He
Oh,
graduated,
really?
but yeah, buddy of mine went there for a couple of years. And he sent me a ball cap. It's teal. I think it's got the same like kind of logo situation as yours does in the front. It's a really slick hat, but it had that like train conductor look where like the corners of it like bulged out a little bit. So what I did is I ripped out the stitches. I learned a way you can take out like
I've heard about doing that,
on a new era cap and kind of flatten it, and then you like wear it in the shower once, and then it's supposed to conform to your head. And it kind of worked.
Kind of.
Like you know that it wasn't a totally satisfying conclusion because I don't wear the hat like ever.
Yeah, but, that's true.
But no, like I did that, and I also like my head has grown since then. Like I'm up a size, so it doesn't probably fit me at all anymore anyway. But sick hat. So yeah, shout out to the Chance.
Yeah,
excuse me.
I've experienced that too. My sister, I've told you, have gotten me like minor league baseball hats the last couple of Christmases, and they're really cool. The one she got me this year is the hat size I was, which was 7 1/4. And it fits, but it'll fit better when I cut my hair.
Sure.
So it's kind of a time sensitive hat. What size are you?
I'm a 7 1/2.
Okay, yeah, I'm up to a 7 3/8 now. That's
what I was for a long time, and now I've been up to 7 1/2. I've been buying 7 1/2 last like 7 8 years.
Yeah, so I know I'm getting old. My head's getting bigger. All right,
that's what Barry Bonds. That's what happened to Barry Bonds.
Yeah,
He's getting older.
He just got older. Yeah. Do not check his locker. All right, game picks for this week. Let's get to our 2 NFL spread picks, our normal ones. I'll go first here. I am on Baltimore +3 against Pittsburgh. I know they're starting Tyler Huntley. It's the Baltimore versus Pittsburgh paradox. Like, no matter how good either team is, no matter where they're playing, who the quarterbacks are, they will play a close game, probably a low-scoring game, too. So I'll take the team with the points. I'll take Baltimore. And I'm on Philadelphia, giving 5.5 to the Giants. They're laying 5 and a hook. That game is such a trap because we saw how the Giants fought back against the Rams last week. We saw the Eagles completely whiz down their leg in that loss to the Cardinals. They are saying, hey, 5.5, Giants, that's more than a field goal. No, absolutely not. Give me Philadelphia.
I'm going with Detroit laying 3 at home against Minnesota. I know that game means more to Minnesota than to Detroit, but Dan Campbell has said he's going to play his starters. And Dan Campbell feels like the kind of coach who, like, you're trying to win every single game.
Yep.
And Detroit going up against Nick Mullins. And this is just, I don't trust Nick Mullins. I have more faith in Detroit doing what they do and pulling out a win of more than a field goal at home because they're playing for a little bit of seeding. Like I think they still have a chance to potentially earn the second seed. So I think they're going to take it fairly seriously, and I think they're going to win handily. And I got the Chiefs +3.5. I'm sorry, Easton Stick should not be favored by more than a field goal over any team ever in the NFL. It should not happen. It should not be.
Yeah, I like that for the Chiefs too, because the Chiefs are going to, as Matt laid out, they will try to win with the guys they have. They're just not going to use all of their best guys. But the Chargers are just a dead man walking. I mean, it's just
the ghost ship of a football team. I don't think they have much more than, like, even if they do win, I don't think they have much more than like 13 points in them. I think the Chiefs can at least get to 10.
If the Chargers win, it's probably going to be because Easton Stick views this as, this is my last chance at a nice backup payday.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That might be the only thing that wills them on. All right, we're going with 3 wild cards this week. We each picked the FCS National Championship
We're on
game.
opposite sides of this game.
We are. I have been on South Dakota State all year. I have called them the best program in college football, the most dominant program in college football this year. Montana's good, though. Very good. The elements are not going to play into this. It's 2 northern teams, but they're playing this game down in Frisco, Texas anyway at the Star. Give me Montana +13.5. I wish the number was a little bit bigger than that, but I'll say that the Grizz keep it at least fairly close.
I disagree. I think South Dakota State is a wagon, and they're going to have their way with the Grizzlies.
I am a little bit sour about the fact that South Dakota State did not cover 21 against Villanova a few weeks ago. Because
that game was in like 40-mile-an-hour winds.
Yeah.
I remember you were on that, and then I turned that game on, and I think there was like a 10-yard punt. It's one of the first plays I saw. I said, oh, okay, it's one of those games. No, South Dakota State, the Jackrabbits are a wagon. I have them covering 13.5.
All right, NFL wild cards. I've got another spread pick in our wild cards this week because I just like this number a lot. Cleveland owns Cincinnati. They have dominated the Bengals in the Joe Burrow era, and I know Burrow's not playing, so I guess we're going to find out. Do the Browns own the Bengals, or do they own Joe Burrow? Browns are not playing their normal starters. They're playing Jeff Driscoll at quarterback at the very least. I don't know how many other starters are going to play in that game, but getting 7.5 from a Cincinnati team that's eliminated, I will take the Browns in that matchup against the spread. And I've got the over in Houston versus Indianapolis. Indianapolis overs have been very good to me over the course of the year. I think there will be a lot of points in this game. I think there will have to be for both of these squads to win. So I will take over 47.5 in Houston, Indy.
I like both of those picks quite a bit. I'm going over in Philadelphia, New York. I know there might be some inclement weather in the Northeast, but I do also think that Philadelphia, with a lot to play for, is going to try to air it out, and the Giants, with a chance to play spoiler against a rival, are going to bring it as well. And I think that game can get over 41. I think that can be a 27-17 kind of football game. And I have the under in Jets-Pats, because I will always Jets-Pats is like the Iowa of NFL games.
Yes.
You always take the under. The total is 30.5. It looks like Iowa-Rutgers. Bet it.
Bailey Zappi versus Trevor Siemian in a blizzard.
That might be my blood bank lock of the week.
Jets, Patriots, under. Those are our game picks. Dan's up on me by 2.5. Can I get the miracle comeback in Week 18? We'll tell you on Monday. Right now, though, we have to get to a timeout. What is wrong with you is coming up next here on 580 Sports Talk. It's time to find our weekly winner in What Is Wrong With You, the first What Is Wrong With You weekly winner of the year for 2024. Brought to you by Top City Metal Supply. They cut the metal you need to your specifications. That means you save time, money, and material. So never settle when it comes to metal with Top City Metal Supply, which you can find on South Topeka Boulevard, halfway between Frito-Lay and Forbes Field, right here in the capital city. Our current winner for the week, bobbing for fries. A woman called in her husband while she was having an issue in the back at her McDonald's job. So her husband, pastor, 57-year-old Dwayne Waden, came in and, he laid the smackdown on some of the employees at his wife's McDonald's, including trying to force a fry cook's head into a deep fryer. Not exactly the most godly act that I've ever heard of. He was arrested, as you can imagine. 2 news stories today. Dan, why don't you go first?
All right. We are going to the great state of, I don't know what state this is, man. I'll be completely honest with you. Tennessee. We're going to Tennessee. Dalton, Tennessee, where the Dalton Fire Department responded to an incident at 2315 Sir Lancelot Place on Wednesday, January 3rd at 4:37 p.m.
That's sick. I love that.
Investigators reported that the 75-year-old resident of the apartment accidentally set himself on fire, leaving him with third-degree burns on 75% of his body.
Oh, God.
He did some real damage. How did he do that? With a lighter while trying to open a bag of chips after failing to open the bag with his hands. He set his recliner on fire, which is what happened. And he went up in flames. He was taken to Erlanger Hospital in Chattanooga before being moved to a burn center. No updated information regarding his condition. Fire was contained to the recliner. So no further damage done to the apartment, though. That's the least of this gentleman's concerns at this point. He was trying to open a bag of chips with a lighter. Folks, help me out. If that's ever been a way you opened a bag of chips.
So, how? What? I'm trying to figure out why that would make sense.
Like, I understand, like sometimes like those bags of chips can be like, the ones that are especially like full of air. Sometimes it's hard to get like a really good grip on them, where like you pull them apart, and maybe you're worried that if you pull them apart and it's too vigorous, you might spill the chips. Chips might go flying all over the place. Embarrassingly enough, that has happened to me before. Not with like a big bag, but one of those like really like small bags. Sure. Like they're too full of air, and you can't get a great grip. And when you finally do, and you pull too hard, and the chips go flying. It's embarrassing. But like, okay, so that's plan A. Why is plan B fire?
I'm just trying to figure out what the goal was. You were just going to melt the bag? I don't even understand where that comes from. Why not grab scissors?
Vance and Mark suggest a high-tech device known as scissors. Great minds thinking alike on the YouTube comments.
You could use any number of types of scissors. You could use just your regular ones you have in the junk drawer. You could use some kitchen shears.
Yeah, anything sharp. A knife would do. A fork, if it's like full up, like just stab it with a fork, deflate it.
A key.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A pen, probably.
Yeah,
do
definitely.
the trick.
I don't get it.
Why fire? Why was plan B, I'm going to light it on fire? Has anybody ever used a lighter to open a bag of chips?
No normal person.
Is that like an old wives trick? Like what?
Yeah, that's insane.
This dude is like badly damaged, and I feel terrible for him. I genuinely do. Like, this is one where the injuries are so severe, I might be a little uncomfortable passing it on as a winner for today. But like, how do you go from can't open this bag with my hands? I know, fire.
Wow. That's unbelievable and really, really dumb. Speaking of dumb, I got a story from Florida for you, where we meet a 26-year-old woman who went from juror to defendant after being accused of intentionally causing a mistrial in the resentencing of a convicted killer. Now, there is a violent crime here, but that's not what is wrong with you. We're skirting the rules.
Yes.
That's an ancillary point here. So during jury deliberations in November, Kayla DePena told Orange County, Florida courts that she had discussed the case with a friend and that it would impact her ability to be fair and impartial in deciding a possible death sentence. She was charged with contempt of court at the time, and then on Thursday told the judge she had lied about discussing the case in an attempt to weasel out of further jury service. She wanted to get out of jury duty by causing a mistrial for a convicted murderer. A different juror in the previous case said DePena was upset about missing work. Quote, we were called back in the room and the judge told us we were going to be sequestered for the night, explained the rules, and then we went back to the deliberation room, the juror told the court, and she asked to speak to the judge before she walked out. She said she was about to make that a mistrial.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, so she just wanted to get out of jury duty and decided to completely screw over the entire judicial process in the process.
And like, I understand that jury duty can be very inconvenient
Mhm.
for you, especially, if you might work, like a retail job or in the service industry, and you've got like your hours, and those are really important to you. You're not a salaried employee. You don't have anything like written into your employee handbook about being able to take time off, paid time off for something like this. You have paid leave. You got to get paid. You got to get paid. You got to pay rent. Like, times are hard. I'm fully understanding of this woman's plight. This is not the way to do it. The way to do it is during jury selection, what TV show was it that said the way to get out of it is just be real racist?
That was Jury Duty on Prime and Freebie. I've been thinking about that ever since I found this story. The guy gets up and says to the judge, I can't be on the jury because I'm a racist. Oh my God. If you have not seen that show, it was on Freevee, which is owned by Amazon Prime, so you can find it through Prime. It's one of the funniest shows I've ever watched. The entire cast is actors except one guy. And the guy is like the nicest human being alive. He's the most friendly person I've ever seen. It's unbelievable. James Marsden is in it.
You know who also did this? You'll be surprised to know The Simpsons did this. Homer saying, getting out of jury duty is easy. The trick is to say you're prejudiced against all races.
The funny in jury, what's extra funny about that, to add another layer? Family Guy always gets ragged on for just copying The Simpsons.
Yes.
They mention in Jury Duty, I saw on Family Guy, you get out of it if you say you're racist. Oh, my God. All right, let's get to a winner for today. I'm kind of with you. I feel bad for this guy. I'm imagining at 75 years old, it's probably hard to recover from your burns all over your body.
Yeah, like, I don't want to run the risk that we make him a winner and then he succumbs to these injuries. Like, I elided that part a little bit when I first read the story. I just said, this guy used fire when like a pair of scissors would do. This is classic. What is wrong with you?
Yeah, if he had just like burned his lazy boy, that would have been one thing. But
like a couple of third-degree burns, like even that,
yeah,
would have
like
been
just
like
the hands or something.
Yeah, like that's a lot of him that's disfigured. That's kind of sad, actually.
Yeah,
that can't be the winner today. We'll go with the woman trying to get out of jury duty.
Does that beat the pastor who tried to shove a man's head in a deep fryer?
Don't know, man. When you phrase it like that, that's a hard story to beat.
Plus, his name is Dwayne Waden.
He said, "You're going to disrespect my wife. You're going to find out how this deep fry oil tastes."
I'm gonna
Tastes like year-old fries.
I'm gonna stick with that one, man. You're a pastor. You can't be doing that.
Man of God.
Was anyway. That is our winner today and our winner for the week. Bobbing for Fries, our champion for the first week of What Is Wrong With You in the year 2024. Brought to you by Top City Metal Supply. Metal cut to order when you need it. That's Top City Metal Supply on South Topeka Boulevard. Dan is on his way to the Butel Center at Hayden High School for some high school hoops tonight. Our Lewis Toyota High School Basketball Game of the Week doubleheader. Hayden versus Washburn Rural. Pregame begins at 5:45 right here on 580 WIBW. Coming up on the other side of this break, though, we're going to get to some KU and K-State. Plus, I saw something on Twitter today I have to share with you because I cannot stop laughing about it. That's all coming up here on 580 Sports Talk. A little Alice Cooper for you on a Friday afternoon. It's a feel-good Friday here on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzinski with you for the rest of the show today. As I mentioned right before the break, Dan is on his way to the Butel Center at Hayden High School for our Lewis Toyota High School Basketball Game of the Week doubleheader. It'll be the Hayden Wildcats and the Washburn Rural Junior Blues, girls first, boys to follow in our doubleheader tonight. If you are headed to that game or any game in the area, please drive safely. The weather is not especially pleasant out there right now, but go enjoy the game, drive safely on your way there. And if you just want to hang back and listen to the game, perfect place to do it right here on 580 WIBW. Dan Lucero on the call tonight. Looking forward to what should be some fantastic basketball here in the capital city this evening. I do want to get to some high school hoops here in a moment, some college hoops here in a moment. But first, I saw this on Twitter today, and I really wanted to share it with you. So obviously, the weather is nasty out, snowy, gross. Started snowing during my commute today. That was not especially fun for you, boy. But maybe I'm behind on this, and I just wasn't aware that this was a thing. But I saw this is from Twitter account Wild Scoobster, which is a K-State fan who also seems to love Scooby-Doo. That seems to be their bit here on Twitter. Posted a graphic of all of the snowplow names of the snowplows in Wichita and Sedgwick County, okay? So while they're out cleaning the streets, salting, doing all the things that they're doing today, they've got a map of the routes and of all the names of the snow plows they have. You might say, Brendan, who cares? Who could possibly care about this? I will tell you who cares, me. And I'm going to put it up on the YouTube right now, and I've got some of the names for you as well that I will just say out loud. Can I interest you in a snow plow named Wolfgang Amadeus Snowzart or Pepe Le Plow, Plowy McPlowface, Snow Force One, William Scrape Spear, Hip Plowpotamus. These are incredible. Who came up with these? What ingenious kindergarten teacher came up with these incredible snow puns that are the names of these plows? I've been thinking about these all day. I've been thinking about the big Leplowski all day since I came across this. Catch my drift. Snow worries. F. Salt Fitzgerald. Whoever came up with these is a genius. They're absolutely brilliant, and I love everything about them. Cleopatra. Who thinks of that? That's incredible. Sand and Deliver. Betty Whiteout. Little Snow Peep. Maybe I'm just entertaining myself with all of these, but again, I've been thinking about them all day. Point of Snow Return. Edward Blizzard Hands. If you've got a favorite and you're watching on the YouTube, let us know on the comments, or a favorite of any of the ones I listed for you. I absolutely love these. And again, maybe I'm just impressing myself with all of these. F. Salt Fitzgerald and Cleopatra is so unbelievably funny. Snow Diggity, Snowed Out, Baby Snowda, all on the list. I love all of these. I appreciate anyone who's laughing along with me. Mark on YouTube, he says he's a fan of Snow Diggity. These are all so good. Creativity. I feel like we are living in an era where it's so popular to have neutral colors. Everything's gray and sharp edges and stuff. Nah, man, be creative, be unique, do different things. I complain about, you want a glimpse into my home life? And no, this is not anything grotesque, I promise. I complain to my wife regularly about and this is such a Brendan Dworzinski thing, it's unbelievable. I complain all the time about how new fast food restaurants, they all look the same. They're all big, gray, ugly boxes. Every new Taco Bell, a big, gray, ugly box. Never forget what they took from you. Those old style, old Southwest looking buildings that they used to have. We used to be a proper country. Be more creative. Come up with fun things. Do fun things. Make unique design unique architecture. Look like an idiot. I do every single day. And look at me. Look how happy I am. Look how great my life is. Be creative. We need more creativity in the world. Creatives out there, you're an important part of this society. And whoever came up with the snowplow names in Sedgwick County and for all of Wichita, Cleopatra. That's unbelievable. Appreciate you. If you're listening to the show, give us a text, 785-272-9429, so I can verbally shake your hand for coming up with all of that. All right, we've got to get to some college basketball, though. KU and K-State are both going to open up their Big 12 slate coming up tomorrow when they take on KU will play TCU. K-State will play UCF. I'll start with the KU game because I think there's more intrigue there. We'll get to UCF in a moment and their intriguing rankings when it comes to some of the advanced metrics. I think this is a really good early test for KU. And Bill Self talked about it yesterday when he was doing his weekly press conference. And he was asked early on, what are you going to do to try to limit the transition looks for TCU to slow them down? And Self said, well, hey, look, go back to last year when the Frogs came up here to Allen Fieldhouse and they ran KU off the floor at Allen Fieldhouse, which does not happen very often. What is KU going to do to try to slow them down? I don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but I think it's going to be a great test for this KU team, especially because it should be a rested group for KU. They haven't played a whole lot over the last really now 3 or 4 weeks or so. They've gone a whole weekend without play, or a whole week between weekends when they haven't played. It was obviously last Saturday against Wichita State, the last time KU took the floor. So you should be well rested. We know this bench is not very deep. What is KU and this short bench going to be able to do? Will they be able to avoid having too many tired legs out there against a TCU team that wants to run the floor? They want to get up and down. They want to beat you with their speed, with their attack mode, offense and defense for that matter. What can KU do to slow it down? And will they be able to slow it down when you've got to play Hunter Dickinson for the vast majority of the game? Kevin McCullough's probably going to play 35 plus minutes. Certainly the same for DeJuan Harris. You're probably going to need that out of KJ Adams as well. Marco Jackson too. You're going to need all 5 of your starters to play 30 plus, 32 plus minutes in all likelihood in this game. What are they going to be able to do to slow down that TCU attack? And I said it earlier on the show when we did our Big 12 season preview, I think this TCU team has a chance to be really good. And I think Jamie Dixon's a good coach. They've got a lot of talent. They might not have a Mike Miles on the team, who last year was all Big 12 caliber, heck of a player, but Emmanuel Miller back. Micah Peavy's a good player. Jameer Nelson Jr. It's unbelievable that Jameer Nelson Jr. is playing college basketball, and he's an upperclassman. He's an old guy for college basketball. Chuck O'Bannon, who we already talked about, might as well be 45 years old at this point. They've got so many older guys who have played so much basketball. Avery Anderson has played a ton of basketball. He's in his 5th year as a senior transfer for this TCU team. I think they are going to be a fascinating team to watch, and I think this matchup in particular is especially fascinating from the KU perspective on things. So I'm hoping that KU is able to come out, have a strong showing. You get the Big 12 opener at home. KU never loses Big 12 openers. They, at home anyway, pretty much never lose, period, at home. Lose very rarely anyway at Allen Fieldhouse. I think this is a great early season matchup, and I think it's a really good way. You'd rather get a TCU game when they're trying to run and play such a fast tempo out of the way as early as possible. So I think that's a good matchup for a fairly well-rested KU team. For what it's worth, for those of you who are fans of the advanced numbers, TCU, according to Ken Pomeroy, currently ranked 33rd in the country. And they play with the, let me see here, number 32. So the 32nd fastest tempo in all of college basketball. And for reference, there are this year 362 Division I teams. So if you're 32 out of 362, yeah, you're playing pretty fast. KU, for what it's worth, 92nd in adjusted tempo. So KU plays at a relatively fast clip, faster than most of the country, not, Virginia basketball. Even, I'll give you another example. Tennessee, KU's played Tennessee a bunch in recent years. Tennessee's 122nd in that metric, and it feels like they play slow as molasses. UConn, 330th. We saw UConn obviously come to Allen Fieldhouse earlier this year. So that's what I'm interested in that KU matchup. Just fascinated to see what they're going to be able to do rested against a really old and I think really talented and well-coached TCU team. As for K-State, and that game you'll be able to catch right here on 580 WIBW coming up on Saturday. I got to make sure I know the time of that game. I had it earlier and then I forgot. And I just want to make sure that I'm not telling you the wrong time. So I will double check. And K-State plays, 5 o'clock. UCF comes to Bramlage Coliseum tomorrow at 5 in the afternoon. 4 o'clock pregame start time here on your home for K-State Athletics, 580 WIBW. I was fascinated earlier today finding out that, at least according to Ken Pom, Kansas State is 78th in the country. UCF is actually ranked higher. I don't believe in this UCF team at all, to be completely honest with you. I know 9-3 is a nice mark to start the season. They ain't played anybody. They've got one of the weaker schedules in all of college basketball, I believe, and I have that listed up here too. UCF has the 328th ranked non-conference schedule this year. They've played nobody, guys. Absolutely nobody. The 3 games they've lost. Miami, when they were ranked 13th in the country, we know Miami is good. Lost by 3 to Stetson, the Hatters, and then lost by 2 to Ole Miss. Losing to Ole Miss is not a bad loss by any means. That's a high major team. They're playing a lot better. They've got an influx of talent down there in Oxford. Chris Beard, while I don't like Chris Beard the person, he is obviously a good basketball coach. But the 2 toughest teams they've played all year, they lost to both of them. Are you impressed by a win over Charlotte by 3 points? Are you impressed by a win over Maine? A 13-point win over Florida A&M. They played back-to-back HBCUs down in Florida, Florida A&M and Bethune-Cookman. I don't know, man. I don't believe it with this UCF team. They haven't played anybody. I understand that, obviously, for some reason, the math likes them a lot. I think K-State is a better coached team. And that's not a slight on Johnny Dawkins. I think Jerome Tang is a really good coach. I think K-State's the team that has more talent than UCF. K-State obviously has the home court advantage with this game being in Manhattan. Is K-State, and I don't want to, sometimes you say, well, this team just beat themselves, and I think that takes away a lot of the credit that should go to other teams for how they're playing. But, I mean, go back to the game against Chicago State on Tuesday night. That was not Chicago State playing an unbelievable game and nearly beating K-State. K-State played a very ugly brand of basketball in this game, and truly, the only reason that game was close was K-State was beating themselves. Chicago State, as Dan told us following the game on Wednesday, they were playing like a JUCO team, and that was not complimentary of Chicago State. So you've got to find a way to avoid some of those miscues you've been running into all year up until this point. And it's not going to change for K-State, the point guard problem, because you had a point guard. You had a go-to number 1 facilitator point guard, and he's not going to play all year. Quez Glover, the transfer, he's not going to get to play this year, we assume, because of injury. We were hoping he would be back for conference play, hoping he was going to be back for the Chicago State game. Obviously not turning out that way. That's unfortunate, but you're not changing that at this point. And while Jerome Tang said this week that they're open to adding someone else, similar to the Naquan Tomlin situation where haven't played this year, so they keep their eligibility, they can transfer in as a graduate mid-season and play immediately. It'd be nice to add a guy like that, but are you going to be able to find a guy like that at this stage of the game who's actually going to make a tangible difference for your group? I don't think the answer is yes. In other words, I think the answer is no. I think it's going to be way too hard to find an impact player like that. So you've got to live with what you've already got out there. K-State can win plenty of games. Tang said he thinks they need 9. Thinks they need 9 more wins. That'll make them a tournament team. So is that 8-10 in the league with a Big 12 tournament win? Is that 9-9 in the league? Is that enough anyway if they get to only 19 wins? I think it's an interesting question. I think it's a fair question. I think K-State gets it done here. And I think this is a Wildcats team that really needs an impressive outing. After a couple of close games that shouldn't have been close games during the non-conference, I think it would really behoove K-State to build some confidence and momentum and put together a dominant win over what I think is a pretty overrated UCF team. We've got 1 hour left of 580 Sports Talk, and it's coming up on the other side of the news. is the final hour of 580 Sports Talk on this feel-good Red Friday edition of the show. Final hour of the week, our first week of 2024. Brendan Dworzinski here with you, wrapping things up. Dan Lucero on site at the Butel Center at Hayden High School for our Lewis Toyota High School basketball game of the week doubleheader. Hayden versus Washburn Rural, a girls-boys doubleheader in that order. Pre-game coverage will start at approximately 5:45. Game one tip scheduled for just about 6 o'clock right here on 580 WIBW and FM 104.9. During our final hour, quote unquote, of the show, let us know your thoughts on whatever we're talking about. Hit us up on the text line. 785-272-9429 is the text line number, or you can jump into the YouTube stream. Our channel name, of course, is 580 Sports Talk, just like the name of the show itself. You can see me fixing my hair underneath my hat right now. I told you my hair is really long right now. It's hard to get it all fixed and not all falling in front of my face. It's a whole thing. I got to get it cut. We'll worry about that later on. Next week. I hate getting my hair cut on the weekends. Too busy. In this final hour of the show, we'll get to our 580 Sports Talk headlines here in just a sec. We will also get some final thoughts on the Chiefs weekend, the NFL weekend. Really thrilling slate of games with a lot of implications for a whole lot of teams. And we will also get things off today. I might do a little AMA, a little Ask Me Anything a little bit later on. We'll have a little extra time to fill. So if you've got any personal questions you want to ask, Dan, I know, does this. He did this just the other day, I think, on the show. And if you have any questions you'd like to ask me, sports, non-sports, whatever, hit me up on the text line, 785-272-9429. Drop me a line in the YouTube comments as well. We'll get to those a little bit later on this hour. With that, it's time for our 580 Sports Talk headlines on this January 5th, Friday, first Friday of 2024. And we start with today's Chiefs quote-unquote injury report. The official list of participation for practice this week. We've got, and what is it now, 5 players who are officially listed as questionable for the game, 2 who are out, and 1 who is listed as doubtful. So those injuries, the players who are out, Donovan Smith dealing with the neck. He was a full participant in practice on Wednesday, DNP the last 2 days. Not a surprise. He is not going to go in the game. Rashee Rice is out as well with a hamstring. He hasn't practiced all week. L'Jarius Sneed with a calf, the same. He is out this week. Doubtful, Patrick Mahomes with an ankle injury. Sure. And questionable this week, Isaiah Pacheco. He has been limited the last couple of days. Nick Bolton, who's been a full participant, he's questionable with his wrist and abdomen injuries. It's a shoulder, supposedly, for Trent McDuffie, who's been a full participant all week. Meanwhile, George Karlaftis and Mike Dana, they're just listed as coaches' decisions. They are questionable for the game. Here, you need to have, right, the accurate number of players. You got to have 46 and 48 if you do any practice squad elevations for this game. I imagine the Chiefs probably will use elevations for this game, or I guess those would have had to come out already. But I figure they were going to bring someone up for the sake of having a couple extra bodies, a couple of guys who can get some reps they wouldn't normally get. But why would you even consider playing Isaiah Pacheco, for example? I mean, this is not the kind of game where you want a guy who has already been quite banged up over the course of the season and someone who runs with such an aggressive style. This is not the time to be giving him a bunch of extra reps. I would not put Isaiah Pacheco out there. Any of the guys listed on here. We know Mahomes isn't going to end up playing. Nick Bolton, why would you play him as he continues to rehab and recuperate from that injury that kept him out for a large portion of the season? There's no need to play Sneed. He's obviously out. Same with Rashee Rice. The only bummer here, this entire list, none of whom I expect to play. A couple of them will probably have to be active just to get to the 46-man roster. But of all the guys who I'm disappointed aren't going to play, the only reason I say I wish Rashee Rice. Wow, that's hard to say 3 times fast. Only reason I wish that Rice was ready to go for this game, he's only 62 yards away from 1,000 for the season. And getting 1,000 yards as a rookie receiver, that is really impressive. Now, it's still impressive to end up with 938 yards for the year. Just because we don't have that perfectly round number does not mean that it's not still a great accomplishment for Rice. However, it would have been nice to see him be able to go out and get 1,000, but I understand much, much, much more important that he is getting some extra rest heading into this matchup in the postseason, no matter who they are matching up against, that who being the Kansas City Chiefs. But I would imagine any of those guys we just listed, even if they are good to go health-wise for the game, and they're left on the active roster. They will not actually be playing coming up on Sunday. Next up on our 580 Sports Talk headlines, the latest stadium drama from Kansas City, and an interesting note. I don't know if I would say it's a call-out, but it is worthwhile messaging that we need to address. A joint statement from the Kansas City Royals and the Kansas City Chiefs. I will read you the more important parts of this statement. The Kansas City Chiefs and Kansas City Royals today announced their commitment to remain in Jackson County, Missouri, if Jackson County voters approve an extension of the 3/8 cent sales tax on a ballot initiative this April. The Chiefs and Royals have partnered with Jackson County for 50 years in a partnership that has worked well for all constituents. As part of the agreement, the teams have agreed to provide more than $200 million in new economic benefits to Jackson County over 40 years in a new lease agreement, alleviating the county's obligation to pay stadium insurance premiums as well as the park levy to the teams. Under the agreement, the Chiefs will conduct an extensive renovation to iconic Arrowhead Stadium. The Royals will build a new downtown stadium and a privately funded $1 billion ballpark district. The teams have not sought any increase in the existing sales tax and have committed to providing the county with significant additional benefits, paying for insurance coverages for their facilities, providing the county the ability to reallocate each team's share of an existing park property for other uses. And the teams are committed to entering into a robust community benefits agreement similar to agreements provided by other NFL and MLB teams. The teams are appreciative of the city's efforts to provide assistance and development structures that will also facilitate these exciting projects. The projects are also contemplated to specifically benefit Jackson County. The benefit between the county, the Chiefs, and the Royals has been a tremendous success for the past 50 years and directly responsible for much of the great momentum our hometown has built, et cetera, et cetera. So those are the nuts and bolts of this entire agreement. Now, I know Quentin Lucas, the mayor of Kansas City, has gone on the radio in KC today. I was going to address this statement. I don't know if this is something that has been well received by Jackson County, Missouri, and by Kansas City, Missouri. I don't know if this was a blindside thing. I don't know if this feels like a bluff of some sort. I don't know if this is, like I said, a call out to make the city of Kansas City and to make Jackson County feel like if we don't make this happen, if we do not pass this, we are going to lose our teams. I don't know exactly what the purpose of this is. I look at this situation very cynically, though. I think if you've listened to 580 Sports Talk over the last several months, last year, frankly, at this point, that we've talked about this Royal Stadium situation, I have been very cynical about it. You want a bunch of public money to pay for stadiums that you can afford yourself. I don't really feel all that great about it. And now, clearly, this is the Chiefs and Royals saying, hey, if you're willing to give us some money, we are more than happy to stay in Jackson County. And, I mean, duh. What team wouldn't be in that situation? The only team I can think of that would ever say, nah, I don't want your public money, I'm going to move elsewhere anyway, is the Rams when they left from St. Louis to Los Angeles, because Stan Kroenke knew the entire time he was moving that team. Even though St. Louis came up with multiple proposals and a lot of public money that would have funded a new stadium for the Rams, Kroenke said, nah, I want LA. And he moved the team, even though he could have gotten a lot of that public money. He bought and paid for his own stadium to move the team when he could have gotten public money to stay in St. Louis. That's the only time I can think of that ever working in that way. To me, the way I read this statement is the Chiefs and the Royals, and this is mostly pertaining to the Royals because they want a brand new stadium, but we also know the Chiefs want to renovate Arrowhead and add the Chiefsville district or whatever it ends up being. I read this as the team saying, well, we want to be in Jackson County, but Kansas City voters, Kansas City taxpayers, if you don't want us here, you're going to show that by not voting for this sales tax to remain in place. And then I guess we're not going to be able to stick around and we'll have to go somewhere else. That's what this feels like. I don't want to put words in the mouths of the Chiefs or of the Royals. I don't want to speak directly because I do not know for certain. I would like to see some more of the fallout. I'm going to go listen to what Quentin Lucas had to say, see exactly what the understanding from the city of Kansas City and from the Royals and Chiefs, see what that understanding is at this point. But this does feel almost a little bit threatening in my view, just because we know it's a hostile situation. Stadium things often are. We'll see how this unfolds. but this just feels like the latest step toward trying to force the public into making sure the teams get whatever they want, even though they can afford the things they want without the public money. It's a bad situation, I think, for the public because it's lose-lose. You either lose your team over the state line or to a different municipality, or you end up footing the bill for all of their fancy new stadiums and whatnot. I don't know exactly what, and the Chiefs outline it, and Chiefs and Royals, it's a joint statement. They outline paying for insurance and, the county's going to have the flexibility to do this, that, and the other thing. We know, though, there's plenty of evidence out there that new stadiums don't bring in nearly the kind of revenue and opportunity that the teams say that they're going to end up bringing in. So it's just a tough situation. And I'll repeat what I have repeated countless times since this entire saga began last year. I am so glad I do not live in Jackson County, Missouri, because those folks are almost certainly going to end up footing the bill. If not for both of these teams, then at least for the Royals, or at least for the Chiefs. One way or the other, you're going to have to foot the bill for money that these teams certainly could afford, certainly could figure it out. Is a partnership a good thing? Absolutely. But, is the city going to get part ownership of a new Royals downtown stadium? Is the city going to get some kind of say in what happens in the new Chiefs district that the organization wants to build? The answer is probably no. And if that's the case, I would be a little hesitant to say, yeah, take more of my money to build this thing that John Sherman or the Hunt family could afford to build. That's just where I stand on the matter. I know a lot of people feel differently. I assume both these teams are going to stay on the Missouri side of the border, probably both in Jackson County. And if it does come down to a vote, I would imagine this sales tax will be extended. That would be my guess. I don't know for sure. That's just an assumption. But the latest in the ongoing stadium saga for the Royals and the Chiefs. We have a text from the 785 that says the Hunts can afford it. John Sherman probably not so much. While Sherman is not, he's not exactly David Tepper, the Panthers owner who's worth over $20 billion. I think John Sherman has enough connections that he could at least foot the bill for a decent amount of what he is looking for. And his partners, he brought on all those celebrity partners and other businessmen. And I'm not, I think there's a perspective that comes with a lot of the stadium talk or the negative owner talk that's, well, they don't actually have the money for this, or it's net worth versus on-hand cash. And you keep talking about other people's pocketbooks and other people's money. I understand that. And I understand that there is an ugly part of that. And I don't want to go too deep into those sorts of things. But I also have seen enough, and we've all seen enough stadium situations around sports, whether it be the NFL, MLB, NBA, NHL, whatever, where you could at least afford part of what you're asking for. And I think it's just a important question to ask. It's a moral question, among other things. Is it worth it to pay tax money to build these stadiums? And if you say yes, that's totally fine. That's your opinion. I could go more so one way than the other, but I can at least understand arguments on both sides. And again, I think this is going to end up passing. I think the people of Kansas City are going to want to keep both the Royals and Chiefs in Jackson County. I do think the Royals are eventually going to get that stadium in downtown Kansas City, although I'd be lying if I told you I didn't want them to come over the border and come to Kansas, because that'd be pretty cool. Continuing on with our 580 Sports Talk headlines for today. Let's get to some other news and notes from around the NFL, shall we? Some injury news. The Houston Texans will not have their sack leader, Jonathan Greenard. He is out for the game against the Indianapolis Colts. That is a significant injury, especially for yours truly, who in our show picks today had the over in Colts versus Texans. Meanwhile, Trevor Lawrence, questionable for the game against the Tennessee Titans. Doug Peterson said today it might go all the way to being a true game time decision as Lawrence tries to deal with some pain and an injury to his shoulder. I think Trevor Lawrence is tough. I think Trevor Lawrence is a good player. I think he wants to be out there for sure. I think it is worth asking, can you win with CJ Beathard against the Tennessee Titans? And to be completely honest with you, and I said this the other day, I don't know if it was yesterday or on Wednesday's show, but I told Dan, I said, I think this Tennessee team, and I think a Tennessee team coached by Mike Vrabel, any team coached by Mike Vrabel, this is the kind of spot where they pull off an unexpected win, because they're going to play with toughness. They're going to play to the final whistle on every single play, a full 60 minutes. I don't know that I would want to go into this game with CJ Beathard as my quarterback, to be honest with you. I think Jacksonville should win either way. Tennessee's not very good, but I wouldn't trust that Jaguars team that hasn't been very trustworthy, even with QB1 on the field this year. They haven't been trustworthy. You're going to trust them with a backup quarterback, even one who's a seasoned veteran who's played for this team already this season? I would not trust them in that situation, but we'll see. Trevor Lawrence, questionable, maybe game time decision for the Jaguars. I'm picking the Jags either way. I do think they end up winning that division. That would make them the 4 seed. And we picked our spots earlier in the show today, who we think is going to get all 7 seeds in the AFC playoffs so far. We'll go around the NFL one more time coming up in just a little bit as we finish up some final thoughts going into NFL regular season week 18. From college football today, some quarterback transfer news. We got a couple of, I don't want to say small deals. I don't want to totally remove any sort of, glitz and glamour from a big day for some of these guys. Oregon backup quarterback Ty Thompson, who at one point was a very highly touted recruit. He is on his way to Tulane. A lot of folks thought he might be going somewhere else. Gunnar Gundy, the son of Mike Gundy at Oklahoma State. He is going to Ohio. Brett McMurphy of the Action Network, among other places, friend of the program. He tweeted out today that Gunnar Gundy is going to OU. No, not that OU. He's going to Ohio. I can't imagine another member of the Gundy family switching allegiances from Oklahoma State to Oklahoma. I have a hard time seeing that happening anytime soon. But here's the big news of the day. And this one to me is fascinating. Talia Tagovailoa, the brother of Tua, younger brother, not as good of a quarterback as Tua. He also was not forced by his terrible father into throwing left-handed like Tua was. Talia throws with his right hand. He entered the transfer portal today, which is bizarre because he's out of eligibility. Why would you enter the transfer portal if you are out of eligibility? Well, here is what Talia Tagovailoa is trying to do. He's trying to get a year of eligibility back. So he played 5 games his first season at Alabama because he started his career at Alabama, ends up transferring to Maryland after his brother, Tua, moved on to the NFL. And again, had a strong career at Maryland. He played 5 games that first season. And he said, and in his official plea to the NCAA, he was always supposed to redshirt that season. There was never supposed to be a situation in which he wouldn't redshirt. But when his brother got hurt, he came in for 2 snaps in a game, 2 snaps in another game, 22 snaps in a final game. He just played sparingly. But when his brother got hurt, he came in for 1 extra game, the final snaps of a contest against Mississippi State, as a way to honor his brother Tua. That's when Tua suffered that severe hip injuries last season at Alabama. We all remember that. We all remember what kind of story that was. And he is essentially saying that because that was an emotional moment, because that was to honor my brother, I should be able to retain the red shirt from that year. I have nothing against Talia Tagovailoa. Again, good college player. He's been very good for the University of Maryland ever since he transferred in there. The NCAA is toothless, but I don't know how you can approve this waiver. I don't. Because if you approve this, and already the waiver process is dumb, it is poorly done, it is so fly by the seat of your pants, it is so hard to know what exactly the standards are from case to case. How can you just give a year of eligibility back just because? Because then you set precedent. And you know what the NCAA doesn't need to be doing now? Setting even more flimsy precedents that go against everything they've always preached and all the rules they've always had. How does that benefit anyone other than Talia Tagovailoa? Because then you end up in a situation where teams and coaches and players get furious because they find out, wait, we could have just applied for a waiver and gotten a pass anyway? This, to me, is a situation in which the NCAA should say, absolutely not. We are not going to approve this. We understand it was an emotional situation, but we're not giving you back a year just because you don't like that you burned your red shirt. Sorry. And again, it's nothing personal, but that would be opening a Pandora's box. The Chiefs absolutely, not the Chiefs, excuse me, looking at a Chiefs thing on my screen right here, that the NCAA does not want to deal with. So I have a hard time seeing them passing this, but he's a brand name. And you know what we know about big programs with money and brand names in the NCAA? They get preferential treatment compared to the regular Joes. Go ask Luke Ford about that, the former tight end in Illinois. Go ask him about preferential treatment because he wasn't a big name, because he transferred to Illinois to be closer to a dying relative. And they said, nope, sorry. But then the same kind of situation for players who transferred into Georgia that same year got a waiver. It's nonsense. You can't set this precedent if you're the NCAA. You absolutely can't. And if you do, throw away eligibility rules. You should be able to play as long as you want. I'm serious. If you're just going to say, we have this rule, but we're going to ignore it to give a year back to a guy because he regrets playing an extra few snaps as a freshman, just get rid of eligibility rules. You can play until teams kick you out. No one will give you a scholarship anymore. If that's what you're going to do, if you're going to allow this, absolutely what should happen. Want to get to a couple quick texts here before we go to a commercial break. One from the 785. Dumb question, is CJ Beathard related to Bobby? That is not a dumb question whatsoever. There are no such things as dumb questions, folks. And yes, CJ Beathard is, I believe, Bobby Beathard's grandson, if I'm remembering correctly. Also from the 785 regarding the stadium, I hope they stay where they're at. A downtown stadium is a stupid idea due to parking and traffic flow. Going to the Sprint Center, parking is a headache, and it takes 1 to 1.5 hours to get out. Ballpark would be much worse. We won't be going to see the Royals should they move downtown. I don't think our texter is the only person who feels that way. My biggest problem with the Truman Sports Complex is that the parking is a nightmare. That's more so a Chiefs problem than a Royals problem. But I imagine if you're at a sellout Royals game, traffic is also, and parking is also probably a nightmare. I have lived here in the post-World Series era and have not had to worry about that. It's been pretty easy to get out of games, if we're being completely honest. But I can understand. I think there's a lot of people who are going to feel that way. I don't know what traffic is going to look like. It's hard enough to find space to actually build a park. Where are people going to park? And another problem with that, and you've heard me complain about this time after time, you can alleviate if you say, hey, we've got great public transportation, awesome public transportation. So you're going to park a little bit away from the stadium, but we're going to have a free light rail or a bus or whatever, and it runs all the time and it's efficient, and we're going to get you there in and out quickly, easily. That's going to make it easier for you. Unfortunately, Kansas City doesn't have that. Nothing even close to that. And don't give me the streetcar. Absolutely do not give me the streetcar. Kansas City doesn't have anything like that. It has been a problem for the sports teams and parking situations for the Chiefs and Royals for forever. And especially as there are more and more people in this part of the country and in the greater Kansas City metropolitan area. So I think that's a very well-founded question, and I think it's a very legitimate concern. And yeah, it's going to be a lot harder. For some people, it'll be harder to get to games. For some people, it'll be easier. That's why this is such a difficult issue, because there are so many different ways and different perspectives to vote on it. I do think they are going to end up, like I said, staying in Jackson County in the long run. I do assume they will get that downtown ballpark, because more often than not, these teams get what they want. One last text to get to from the 785, then we've got to get to a commercial break. My problem with the Royal Stadium problem is if you want to spend that time and money on a stadium, please spend money on a competitive team. I won't pay money to see a stadium. I pay to see the team. No, I agree. I am of the belief, and I've shared this before talking about KU Stadium, the booth. I didn't care. Like, oh, the concessions are bad, or, oh, it's old and it's ugly. I don't care, man. I'm there to see a football game. Now, granted, those games weren't very fun either for the most part when I was going as a fan, but still, that doesn't bother me. Eat a snack before you go to the game. Go to the bathroom before you sit down. Then you don't have to worry about it. And I know, porta potty jokes, haha, whatever. I am of the belief that as long as something's not going to fall on my head and I'm not going to get hit by falling concrete or something, I don't really mind the stadium that much. Some are cooler than others, no doubt. But it's a building to watch the event. You're there to watch the event. I'm there to watch amenities around me. That doesn't bother me all that much. But again, this is the number one bargaining chip for teams, and even bad teams have forced their way in and out of places. I mentioned the Rams earlier. When they jetted from St. Louis, they were not very good when they were in St. Louis for those last few years, more than the last few years, in fact. I agree, though, and I think the Royals have done a good job this offseason of adding talent. It might not be elite top end talent, but they should be a better team this year. They should be at least a competitive team. And I imagine they're spending more because John Sherman realizes we're going to garner more support if we have a team out there that is worth supporting. So I think our texter is on the right track. And I know he is not alone because, or they, I don't want to say he, she, whoever it might be, because I feel the exact same way. I don't want to have to spend more tax money. And again, thankfully, not my tax money, not hopefully most of our tax money. I don't want to spend more money, though, to build a stadium for a team that's not trying to give me a product I'm going to spend my time caring about. We have to get to a timeout. Thanks for the interaction on the text line. Again, send in your thoughts about whatever we're talking about today. 785-272-9429 is the text line number. Coming up on the other side of this break, we'll get some final thoughts on NFL Week 18. That's coming up here on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzinski here with you on 580 Sports Talk on this Feel Good Friday afternoon. Thanks so much for spending some of your afternoon hours with us. Dan Lucero getting ready for some high school hoops coming up tonight. JV game underway right now. We will have coverage of varsity action between Hayden and Washburn Rural from the Butel Center at Hayden High School coming up right around the top of the hour. We'll send it out to Dan at the Butel Center as soon as pregame is ready to begin right here tonight for our Lewis Toyota High School Basketball Game of the Week doubleheader on 580 WIBW and FM 104.9. A couple of straggler text messages in here that I wanted to get to. This one about basketball tonight. Brendan used to have this conversation with Dan. Better have filler material in case the JV game goes into overtime. One of the fond memories I have of high school basketball, and I know Dan has been in situations like this before, and you could ask our pal Larry Latimer, who Dan has called many games with, I've called many games with. A few years ago, we were at Hayden, and JV went long, and I think it went into overtime. Might have gone to double overtime, if I remember correctly. And I am a creature of habit. You know, athletes, they always have their certain routine, and a pitcher. A pitcher is a great example of this. I've always heard, I think it was trying to remember. I think it was John Lackey, if I remember correctly. Everyone always had this public perception of John Lackey that he was like rude and a jerk, and he seemed unpleasant. I remember hearing when he was on the Cubs, I think it was his wife who said this, that in 4-day stretches during baseball season, nicest guy in the world, best dad in the world, an incredible husband, all that. But on that 5th day, when it was John Lackey's day to start, get out of his way. He is in the zone. All that he is worried about is pitching, his routine, getting ready for his outing, etc. So everybody's a creature of habit to some degree, right? Broadcasters, same way. For games, when I'm calling a game, I like to have things go as smoothly as possible. And sometimes that doesn't happen. Your equipment fails for some reason, or you lose internet connection, or the game starts a little bit earlier or later than you expected. That happens sometimes. But I like to have a fairly smooth intro because I like to, be fully mentally engaged, ready to go in a broadcast, right? So Lat and I are doing a game at Hayden, and it goes super long, past 6 o'clock. We end up broadcasting, you might remember this, we end up broadcasting the second overtime of this JV game. We go to commercial break. It finally ends. I was about as snarky as I think I've ever been during a basketball broadcast before. And during the commercial break, before we start pregame for varsity, I was in the most sour mood that I can remember being at a game, calling it. I said, how are you calling all these fouls? Why is it going so long? Oh, I was ticked off. So yes, having the filler, knowing that you're going to need extra material, maybe you're going to need to call a little bit of JV action. Always good to be on top of those things as much as possible. So some very sage advice from our text line today. Also, this in from the YouTube comments. More than welcome anyone who wants to send in a question, a comment, send them on in. We'll do Ask Me Anything, 5 o'clock hour. 785-272-9429 is the text line number. And you can also find us on YouTube, 580 Sports Talk. Almost said the wrong name. Almost said the old name again. 580 Sports Talk on YouTube is where you can find us. You can drop a comment in the live stream today. So 2 here from Vance on YouTube regarding the Talia Tagovailoa situation. Too bad, so sad, dude. You played in 5 games. That's exactly how I feel. And it's, again, nothing personal. But we can't just be saying there is an established rule in place, a very obvious and well-defined rule, and that the NCAA, let's not forget, has already bent on by saying last year, and I believe it was applied this year as well, or it will be applied this year, that even in bowl games, that doesn't count toward the 4-game redshirt rule. So if you're redshirting a year, you can play 4 regular season games and a bowl game and still keep your red shirt. These are very well defined and already somewhat bendable rules. You can't just go back and say, well, I wish I hadn't taken those snaps, or, well, it was an emotional thing. I want that year back. No, absolutely not. Even for a good player, even for someone with a recognizable name, you absolutely cannot allow that. Second text or message here on YouTube from Vance, and this is a non-sports one. Brendan, DC or Marvel? I'm going to be honest with you, okay? I want to be honest all the time. I have never seen a Marvel movie. Not a single one of them. Not any of the new Spider-Man ones, not a Captain America. I saw at a friend's wedding, I saw about 30 minutes. I think it was Endgame, one of the Avengers movies, I believe. We were watching it. We were in the back room getting ready, getting all dressed before we did pictures. We watched about 30 minutes of it because one of the guys in the party wanted to watch it. I've never seen anything else from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, okay? I saw the old Spider-Man movie with Tobey Maguire, the one with Bonesaw, the one that has Randy Savage in it. Rest in peace to the Macho Man. So I, by default, have to go with the DC comics, at least movie-wise. I've never been a big comic book reader. And I do like Batman. I know it's kind of been a resurgence of, is Batman actually a bad guy discourse online? People who are online way too much, like myself, dive into that a lot. I do love the Batman movies, though, specifically the Nolan trilogy. So I think by default, Vance, I got to go with the DC comics in that one. We have a sports question here from Casey in the YouTube comments, who's also very interested in the Hayden Washburn Rural game tonight. We're very excited for those as well. Again, coming up right around the top of the hour for our Lewis Toyota High School basketball games of the week. But Casey asks, Michigan or Washington for the Natty? Who you got? So we will break this game down in full coming up Monday on the program because there's a lot to get into with this game. And I believe I have mentioned this before, but my hometown is the same hometown as Michigan starting quarterback J.J. McCarthy, even though he chose to go to the private school in town and then transferred for his final year down to Florida and IMG Academy. We are both from LaGrange Park, Illinois. So there is a part of me, as much as I've always hated Michigan my entire life, that wants to root for Michigan because, hey, coming from the same hometown as the national championship winning quarterback, that would be pretty sick. I'm not going to lie. But I also love Michael Penix. I've loved this Washington team from the very beginning. That's hard for me. Now, I do have an opt-out here just as a fan that my wife, being a Washington State alumna, she does not want Washington to win, certainly. So I might just back out and say, you know what? I'm going to root for Michigan because that will make sure that everybody in our household is happy. In terms of who will actually win the game, though, man, it's tough. I think this is a legitimate toss-up. If I was going to bet on the game, and I know this isn't the exact question, if I was going to bet on the game, I think I would take Washington at this point. They're a 4.5-point underdog, neutral site game, a climate-controlled environment where I think that passing game for Washington is still going to be able to thrive. I would take them. I think this will be a close game. I think there's two very evenly matched teams. I think Michigan overall is probably a little bit better, but a hot quarterback in the postseason is a lot like a hot goalie in the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs. Sometimes you just play out of your mind, and that is the deciding factor. Right now, I don't think there's anybody in the country, and I know there's only 2 teams left playing football this year at the FBS level, but I don't think there's anyone who's played quarterback better over the last couple of weeks than Michael Penix Jr. So I would go with Washington against the spread. That's tough, man. That's a really, really tough question. Give me Washington. I think they're a more fun team, but it is hard for me to pull against the LaGrange Park native and J.J. McCarthy. That's tough. Casey, I promise you, I'm going to spend a lot of time this weekend going into Monday's show, getting ready to break that one down because it's tough. I think this is going to be a great game. And this is, as much as I have criticized and complained and critiqued about and toward the 4-team playoff and the godforsaken committee, we got a banger of a playoff this year. There's no denying that. So we'll talk about that more coming up on Monday. Give me Washington for now, but I do reserve the right to change that come Monday's show. We've got a couple in here. We got Casey's pick as well. 42 Michigan, 35 Washington. Got family in Michigan. Makes some sense. I think Michigan's a great team. I really do. I've been saying all year I think they're the best team in college football. So it's tough. I think it's really tough. I'm going to go with the hot quarterback, but I could certainly see this going either way. I think it'll be a close game either way for sure. I know everyone loves that analysis. Well, it'll be a close game. I do. I really do believe these two teams are very evenly matched. We got a couple of questions from Jason here. Number 1 from the NFL. Brendan, you're a Packer fan. I kind of root for them in the NFC. Love is playing really well in the last 6 or 7 games. What do you think about this weekend and your hopes for the playoffs? So I think Jordan Love's the dude. I will just say that right now. I think Jordan Love is the guy. And as an owner of an NFL team, you guys love when I say that, rocking all my Packers gear in studio today, in fact, I think Jordan Love's the guy. I think he has proven in ways that are repeatable that he's got what it takes to be a franchise quarterback. And the fact that he has put up phenomenal numbers against some tough defenses. I mean, he put up great numbers against the Chiefs several weeks ago. We all remember that game. But the fact that he's doing it with his de facto number 1 receiver, Christian Watson, injured for a large portion of this season, and he's got so many other young guys that he's relying on and throwing to, an offensive line that's had guys rotating in and out all year, running backs that have been in and out of the lineup. Aaron Jones has missed a bunch of time. A.J. Dillon is not going to play in Week 18. I think Love's the guy. I'm confident that he's going to lead this Packers team into the future. What do I think about this weekend? Oh, God. I think the Packers win. I'm taking Green Bay to win. I will go. I don't remember what I picked on earlier in the week. I picked the Packers to win. I think I had them covering a 3-point spread as well. I just don't trust Justin Fields on the Bears side. I don't trust the Packer defense either, but you know my belief in Justin Fields. Pretty much non-existent. I don't think he's a very good quarterback. Bears defense is playing better, but always in the NFL in this era, give me elite offense or pretty good offense versus a pretty good defense. So I would take the Packers against the Bears this weekend. As for the playoffs, though, just getting there, man. That's more than enough for me. Absolutely more than enough for me. I didn't think this team was playoff bound. My hope was they'd be in contention for the 7th seed this year and that the team could find out, is Jordan Love good enough to be your quarterback of the future? That first one, absolutely. That second one, absolutely. This season's already a success to me. Even if the Packers end up making it into the postseason, even if you get blown out by the Cowboys, or God forbid you lose to the Lions again in the playoffs, that's still overwhelmingly a positive year for a team that is going through a lot of flux and has a complete dunce as its defensive coordinator. But it's a feel-good Friday. We're keeping the vibes high. Not going to bring up Joe Barry anymore. We've got another question, too, from Jason. And by the way, Jason, I know longtime listener, Dolphins fan as well. When I was a kid, the Dolphins were my number 2 team. I loved Jay Fiedler. What were we talking, like 2001, 2002, 2003, around there. I loved Ricky Williams when he was in Miami. I actually had a replica Dolphins helmet as a kid. It's still in my parents' house in my childhood closet back at home. I know Jason's a big Dolphins fan who came in with that last question. Another one from Jason, too. What is your favorite broadcast that you've done? High school football or basketball? I loved listening to your St. Mary's football game last year. Well, I really appreciate that, Jason. Thank you for the kind words. I think that's got to be the answer. You ever get to see a 99-yard touchdown drive in person? It's pretty spectacular. And when it's a team that you got to know a little bit over the course of the playoffs, and athletes and families you got to know a little bit over the course of the playoffs, really made it that much more special. Doing it with Greg was a blast, obviously out in Hayes. And yeah, that was probably, of any broadcast I've ever done, any game I've ever called, the single best individual effort I've ever seen from Keller Hurla in that game. 6 total touchdowns in his last ever high school football game. That was incredible. I think I would probably have to go with that one. Second answer, though, this is from back when I was in college, and Fulton and I shared this story before. Shout out to Fulton. We were students at the same time at KU, and we were both on the student radio broadcast for Kansas versus West Virginia at Allen Fieldhouse, 2017. That's the game when KU broke the Guinness Book of World Records record for loudest indoor arena. That was also the game where KU was down, I think it was 14 points late in the second half, came all the way back. Nathan Adrian dropped a rebound right off his foot out of bounds. Game went to overtime. Devontae Graham went crazy in that game. That one's right up there because you got to do it with a good friend in Fulton, and just an unbelievable game, too. So college game, I think I'd go with that one. In terms of high school broadcast, though, that championship game, St. Mary's versus Inman back in 2022, that was a blast. That was an all-time great memory. And appreciate, again, the kind words and appreciate all the questions. If you've got any more, send them in. We're doing Ask Me Anything until we send it over to Dan Lucero for our Lewis Toyota High School Basketball Game of the Week doubleheader. I promised you a little more NFL talk. We'll get some final thoughts on the Chiefs and the NFL weekend coming up on the other side of this break. Plus, any more questions you've got on the text line or YouTube, they're coming up here on 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzinski here with you. No bump music for me right there, but that's okay. Make your own music in your head. Brendan Dworzinski, though, here with you. We're going to send things over to Dan Lucero at the Butel Center at Hayden High School. Following the JV game going on right now between Hayden and Washburn Rural, our Lewis Toyota High School basketball game of the week doubleheader. Hayden and Washburn Rural. Pre-game coverage will begin, well, as soon as you hear Dan Lucero's voice. We will send it out to him probably just after the top of the hour right here on 580 WIBW. Doubleheader, girls game first, boys game to follow coming up tonight from the Hayden High School Gymnasium. Should be a fun one. Again, really excited, both boys and girls, for that one coming up. And Dan will be on the call for both games as soon as JV wraps up. Had another question here in the YouTube feed. We're doing Ask Me Anything for this final hour. This one's from Mark. And Mark, I know my wrestling guy in the comments. Appreciate that. Asks, how do I think CM Punk's going to do in WWE his second time around? I don't really have much of an appetite to see him at this point, if we're being completely honest. I was sort of ready for that era to pass, but he's an all-time fan favorite, obviously. If he's only going to wrestle a couple times a year, I think it'll still be at least worth the entertainment value. I could go either way on another Chicago guy there. Lockport, I believe, is where he's from originally. I could go either way on it, to be completely honest. I've been a little tuned out of the product recently. There's a lot going on when you're married and you're calling games and you're working and, trying to just survive day to day. Hard to stay on top of like 18 different sports and wrestling and all the other things and shows and movies you want to do. So haven't paid a ton of close attention recently, but I'm sort of indifferent to it. Could go either way. I used to be a huge fan of Punk's back in the day, but we'll see. As long as he's not fighting guys in the back and creating all sorts of public drama like he did at his last stop in AEW, I think the company will be just fine. Final thoughts on the NFL weekend, though. I've been promising you these throughout the hour. I know you've been waiting with bated breath for me to get to these. We were talking a little bit earlier while we were answering some questions about that Packers-Bears game this weekend. That's definitely, well, I don't know about definitely. That is arguably the game of the weekend in the NFL because you've just got so much riding on it. There are not many games that are truly win and in this week. The next closest thing you've got to it is probably that Buffalo-Miami game that's coming up on Sunday Night Football. That's going to be a thriller. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. The Bills are a fun team. Josh Allen has been, despite the turnovers and even with the turnovers, he has been great this year. Really entertaining. Great for much of the year. Let's phrase it that way. Great for much of the year. And the Dolphins, while flawed, are also very fun. I think that's going to be a great game. I would put that top of the list as the most intriguing games of the weekend, that Bears-Packers tilt, and then Dolphins versus Bills coming up on Sunday Night Football. Other than that, if you're a team that's already got things locked up, I don't blame you for not playing your starting quarterbacks. I don't blame the Chiefs for not playing probably the vast majority of their guys. What matters now is the postseason. Would it be more fun if you ended up with a Steelers-Ravens game where Lamar Jackson was playing for the Ravens? Yeah. Would you like to see Patrick Mahomes throw for 330 yards and 3 touchdowns against the Chargers? Sure. It's hard for me to get too worked up, though, when things are already locked in. The season is long, man. When they added this 18th week, that is a lot more wear and tear on the body going into the most important part of the year. Hard to blame these teams for resting guys, even if it takes a little bit away from the entertainment value, takes a little bit away from the sports talk value, previewing these games as well. But those are the two I'm keeping my eye on the most. And also because, I might be an owner of the Green Bay Packers. Let's get to one final timeout. We'll come on back. We'll get you a final word, and we will hopefully, sooner rather than later, send you out to the Butel Center for some Hayden versus Washburn Rural High School basketball. That's coming up as we wrap up this edition of 580 Sports Talk. Wrapping up 580 Sports Talk today and for the week with a quick final word. I want to appreciate all you guys for sending in the comments, the questions during this final hour. A lot of fun to get to share some off-the-wall stuff. And my final thought for this weekend, I can't wait for Big 12 basketball to finally start. KU-TCU should be a banger. Hopefully an opportunity for K-State to get off on the right foot as well and to build a little momentum after a game they should have probably won by about 80 against Chicago State. Can't wait for Big 12 basketball. KU games on TCU. Bill Raftery in the building. How can you not be excited about Raft being on your TV to start off the Big 12 season? So we're looking forward to that. That is coming up. Again, K-State on our airwaves tomorrow. 4 o'clock pregame start time, 5 o'clock tip-off right here on 580 WIBW. Just one of the bevy of basketball games we have coming up on the Alpha Media Topeka family of stations this weekend. Again, sometime shortly after the top of the hour, we will send you out to the Butel Center at Hayden for our Lewis Toyota High School basketball Game of the Week doubleheader. Dan Lucero on the call as Hayden hosts Washburn Rural. The girls first, the boys to follow. And then tomorrow, along with K-State here on 580, we've got Washburn basketball over on Country 106.9. I'll be on the call from Lee Arena as the Ichabods look to continue their momentum in both men's and women's action, taking on the Newman Jets. 12:45 broadcast start time, 1 o'clock game one tip-off. That'll be the women first coming up tomorrow, again, over on Country 106.9. Don't forget to check out the podcast version of the show if you missed anything during the show today or any of the days we were on the air this week. Head over to our website, 580WIBW.com, hover over the podcasts tab, and then click on 580 Sports Talk to find the show broken down into bite-sized hour-by-hour chunks. Or you can always go to the YouTube and go back and scrub through any of our shows, whether it was today's live stream, yesterday, any day. We've got all the editions for over a year back on our YouTube channel. 580 Sports Talk on YouTube is where you can go find us. Throw us a subscription while you're over there. Up over 400 to start the year. Appreciate all you guys who've been following along online. That does it, though, for 580 Sports Talk today. For Dan Lucero, I'm Brendan Dworzinski. We'll get to the news at the top of the hour, and we'll send you out to our Game of the Week right after that here on 580 WIBW.